He's going to start in a second. You guys, I want to make sure I didn't miss any super chats. Face Palmer, how much everything is there? Yeah, how much everything is there? It's good question, because if it's all matter, you believe that there's some end to it, right? Thank you for your $5. Appreciate that. Sergio says, yeah, I understand theory can make sense. We're not depending on the definitions of matter. I agree that old notions of materialism are not good enough. I subscribe to a bit of Gustavo Bueno. I would say no bueno. If you ever want to, when there is a panel, you can jump on. If it's slower, you can jump on. But there are enough defeaters to materialism, physicalism. I mean, really obvious ones. I mean, the most obvious one, I don't even think you could sidestep it, right? So even the guy you're referencing, how could you possibly, not only the impossibility of knowledge is the consequence of materialism, but when you say materialism is true, you're assuming propositions are true or exist. But then what is a proposition made of? And then it goes back into determinism. So it's like a clown show.
All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Patrick Carey with Church of the Eternal Logos. And today we got a fun open panel where we'll be discussing what many people believe the year of chaos 2024. Of course, we are 12 days into 2024. It's already been quite an interesting year. We've already had some Epstein drops. Cat Williams made some call outs of people in Hollywood. Apparently aliens bombarded a Miami strip mall. So we're off to a pretty interesting start so far, but we are going to be opening it up. Again, there's not a whole much of a monologue today. So I'm asking everybody to hop on. If you got some comments, I got a few potential things that could be negatives or positives in the year 2024. So though we have an election cycle, of which many people around the world actually have an election cycle this year. I think it was like 45% or close to 60% of the world has elections in 2024. So definitely going to be a wild ride. But I got a few things just to potentially get the conversation going before we bring some people on. We already got Nemesis. Looks like he's waiting in the background. So welcome, brother. Again, if anybody wants to join, please use this link right here. Again, anybody's welcome to come on. We just ask that you keep the language consistent with TOS, obviously. We've had a few people come on with nefarious intentions. So we ask everybody be a good sport and understand. But 2024, some potential negatives, and we're going to get people's opinions today. Obviously, mass immigration, that's definitely not going to stop for at least another year, even if, let's say, we were able to get some type of presidential candidate into office who is willing to make some changes. Well, again, they don't even take office until 2025. And so if you think the border crisis is bad, which it is, we had an all-time high for the month of December, which is rare for the winter time. Well, that's not going to let up. And that's not going to stop. We've seen in Brooklyn, New York, I don't know if you guys saw where they're now housing them in elementary gymnasiums. And the mayor, what's his name? Eric something Adams. The mayor of New York City has said that they're going to be coming to a house near you, that they're asking private residents to begin housing illegal immigrants. So very interesting. So again, this is another potential negative. We know that they're funded by the globalists. We know that there's Agenda 21. Anybody who's familiar can go look that up and you'll know exactly what. Yeah, Eric, the mayor's Eric Adams. Exactly. That's what I thought. It wasn't positive. But we know that they're funded by a lot of NGOs, and the same people behind the mass immigration into Europe are the same people behind the mass immigration into the United States and even into Canada. And that's not going to stop. So that's certainly a potential negative. We'll see what people's thoughts are on that. Economic collapse, that's also a potential negative. We see that the US dollar, with the rise of BRICS, nations like Russia, China, Iran, Saudi Arabia, I think Brazil has joined, are looking to create a new global currency of which would not be the US dollar. And this has led some people to speculate that that may be part of the massive funding of the Ukrainian war with Russia. Is yes, it's clearly a money laundering operation, but also it keeps the US dollar afloat by putting so much money into circulation. It's just a temporary effort to keep the dollar going. Who knows? We also know that the Fed Reserve took our currency over in the early 20th century, and it's never been on a gold standard since, and is basically fiat paper currency, which they can print at will. But we see housing prices going up, food costs going up, and I just did a stream talking about the American, the French, and the Russian Revolution, and one of the consistencies with both the French and the Russian Revolution was the amount of food shortage. And so people literally didn't have access to necessary resources, which led to these sort of communist social uprisings due to the propaganda. And so is that another attempt to get, create a sort of destabilization, inflate the cost of food, inflate the cost of housing, so that maybe people will be more sympathetic to the rhetoric of communist ideals, socialist ideals, and all this type of stuff? I suspect that may be part of it. Rampant degeneracy. If you feel like our culture is moving in the wrong direction, I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon in 2024. So I would say that'd be another negative. And we see how many people of a particular community, the Skittles community, you could say, are being placed in positions of power. That's no accident, because as soon as you adopt certain types of lifestyles, you're naturally going to be accepting of many different ideas. So rampant degeneracy, that doesn't seem like it's going to slow down in 2024. World War III, we have, again, all these neocons and really the entire globalist establishment. Doesn't matter what party they're in, especially in the United States. But talking about war with Russia, we see NATO, we see the basically NATO takeover of Poland. I don't know if you guys have been following that. So Poland went from basically a nationalist government to a essentially run by the globalist, of which their first thing was to begin to promote Skittles ideology and talk about war with Russia. And if Poland goes to war with Russia, the entire NATO alliance and the European Union is going to follow suit, which would then bring the United States in. Is that a possibility? Certainly it's on the table. Is it going to happen? We don't know. We see people like Lindsey Graham beating the drum of war with Iran. That's, again, potentially setting off another war, of which we'll go ahead and fight the war on behalf of Israel, as was the case with Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria and all the other times. But World War III, that's certainly on the table. Corrupt presidential election. We know that, again, just to avoid some of the snares of YouTube, that there have been presidential elections in the United States of America that maybe weren't so legitimate. And in that effort, many people suspect the things that happened maybe 4 years ago is going to happen again this year. We know that in the United States, one of the few first world countries where you don't need a state or a citizen ID to cast your vote. We know that the immense amount of immigration has been explicitly stated by some Democrats in government that this is a new voting bloc. And so corrupt presidential elections, mail-in ballots. I know Tucker Carlson, some people have speculated that maybe Trump's going to get assassinated. I don't know. Who knows about that? But certainly that's a potential topic on the table. But if we went to war, also it's potential that there may be issue martial law. And if there was a martial law, that maybe there would be no election, or maybe there's another pandemic. And if the pandemic sets afoot, again, maybe there's another reason that there won't be a presidential election. And maybe that's going to set off a domino effect of which there will never, ever be a transition of power moving forward in the United States. Possible. What about domestic terror attacks? We know for a fact that various Islamic, radical Islamic groups have come through the southern border. We know that many Chinese nationalists have come through the southern border. Of course, we know that Central America has basically been emptying out their prisons and just putting people on foot down to the southern border. So domestic terrorist attack. Sounds like that's another possibility. There's been speculation about, if the CCP, they got enough nationalists here in the United States, so they wanted to shut down the grid, certainly could. We know that there's various Islamic radical groups that have been caught all over the United States doing sort of military drills, learning, buying equipment, preparing for something which potentially could be nefarious. So that's certainly on the table. But of course, we know that the FBI has also said that those pesky old heterosexual white Christian men, that they are the most likely to commit a domestic terrorist attack. And I wouldn't be surprised if our own government committed its own sabotage to the grid or something worse, who knows, in the name of the people that they in fact want to imprison. So that's another possibility. And then in that regard, federal persecution of the domestic populace. We know that MAGA, if you saw the recent political ad of Joe Biden, he literally states that basically the biggest worry to the United States are MAGA people. It went from Nazis to white supremacists to now it's just anybody who's quote unquote make America great again. All the MAGA movement are now domestic terrorists. We could see a potential effort by the federal government to begin persecuting those people, of which we've seen has happened with the J6ers and everything moving forward. Now they're prosecuting people on the J6 that didn't even go into the Capitol, that were just in the vicinity. So, and I suspect, again, that's setting a precedent for if you were to resist any sort of potential illegitimate election moving forward, that you will definitely be dealt with swiftly by the federal government, because that precedent has already been set that you are a domestic terrorist and you are a threat to democracy. Now, on a lighter note, certainly though 2024 might be the year of chaos, there may be some optimism. And so I was saying maybe some potential positives from 2024. We'll get people's thoughts. One being, I hope to get married and finish my academic work. And so I'm pretty hopeful and optimistic about that. God willing, I'm able to do that. Anybody who has been following my life knows that I'm engaged and waiting for my fiance to get her K-1 visa. And so any prayers regarding that would be greatly appreciated. But that's true for all of us. 2024 may be the year that we find our person. We find the person we're going to build our life and family with. So relationships, personal goals, maybe you're starting that new business. Maybe you're making a new venture. Maybe you're changing directions with your life. 2024 may be that year. And so even though everything that's outside of our control may be a great negative, there may be many positives that we can be aware of and look forward towards. The Great Awakening, I think, is a great positive. I don't think anybody who's has any foot in the waters of the conspiracy world or the truther world wouldn't notice that there is a great awakening at foot, and many people are becoming aware of things that maybe they weren't aware of previously. And so I think this is a great positive. That the more people that are awake, we really have numbers on our side. And so as Brett Weinstein has talked about, the great Goliath, the Goliath being the system that is, well, us being the faithful Christians and believers, being the shepherd boy David, maybe there's great hope. Maybe that the Great Awakening is an opportunity. And this may be a turning point in the Great Reset. It's potential, maybe not, maybe so. Some people have speculated about a Bitcoin boom in 2024. Is that possible? Could the crypto market maybe blast off and present opportunities for all of us that are being disenfranchised intentionally by the system that is? That might be an opportunity. So if you have crypto, if you have Bitcoin, you have alternative resources with money exchange, maybe this is the year that things move in the right direction. That might be a possibility. In regards to our faith, growth in orthodoxy is at an all-time high in the West. As I've said before, I have not had a single person on who's a clergy member. So any of these priests that I've had on, every single priest that I've had come on said they are experiencing a massive boom in the church and a massive growth in catechumens wanting to join the church. Well, that is only a benefit. And so numbers are only going to grow from this point forward, I suspect. And as I've mentioned before, Father Peter Heers believes in the prophecy of St. Paisios that orthodoxy is going to go through a golden age before we reach the end times. And so could that possibly be the beginning right now? Are we potentially going through a golden age, and that as the world maybe falls around or falls down around us and crumbles, that maybe people finding the true church is actually at an all-time high all around the world? Could be a possibility. Another one is the Overton window shift. I don't think anybody can doubt that, especially with the happenings of Israel-Palestine, the growth of X, that the Overton window in an acceptable public discourse is certainly altered and different than 2019. No doubt about that. So the shift in the Overton window, I think, is a massive positive potential and benefit for the year of 2024. Again, I've been skeptical about us having an actual election in 2024. I've been very skeptical about Donald Trump. But maybe there's real government change. Maybe 2024 is the year that maybe we actually win something. I doubt it, but it's a possibility. And I say the last potential is one of the things that's happening as good men create good times create soft men create hard times. We are in hard times, and therefore the only positive is that those who are going to excel are going to be good men, strong men. So this is an opportunity for the growth in traditional masculinity, and I think that is a great benefit. So that's kind of my opening, in that we're going to be hitting on all these topics. We got a gentleman here on the back end getting ready to hop on. Again, if anybody would like to join, this is an open panel. Anybody can join if you would like. And so let me share that link again. So here it is. Please join the conversation. We're discussing the year 2024, what many people consider the year of chaos. Join the stream right here. And so that's for anybody, no matter what platform you're on, just come on and join us on StreamYard. But before we do that, got to do a little bit of shilling real quick, and then we'll bring on our first gentleman. The first line of business, of course, is if you would like to support my work, one of the best things you can do is go over to the website, davidpatrickcarey.com/register, become a website member. We got tons of exclusive video content. All this is up, including Brother Nathaniel's latest conversation with Alec Jones. That full conversation is up at the website. We have tons of exclusive video members content. We have over 8 pages full of videos. It's more than that. So for $5 a month, you can get access. Of course, we have our fitness membership the first Monday of every month. And then we have our premium membership, which I'm turning into a think tank. It's going to be a think tank of people coming together to have private conversations, discussing ideas about the world. So stay tuned for that. If you want to join the think tank, become a premium member. Also, if anybody wants to sign up for a one-on-one, please do so with this link right here. This is the register link, and this is the one-on-one link. Would greatly appreciate that. We can hop in a private Zoom meeting, and we can talk about any topic your heart desires. And then if anybody would like to sponsor a stream, you can do so with this link right here. And I would greatly appreciate anybody who'd like to support the work and have a particular topic you'd like me to dive into. Please do that. And also, if you are looking for maybe some merchandise, go check out the store. We have it on the website and on YouTube. I'd be greatly appreciative if anybody wants to get some COTEL goodies. Would greatly be appreciative. And then the last thing is, if anybody's in the market for some Orthodox stuff, go check out orthodoxdepot.com. Orthodoxdepot.com. It's a great Orthodox company here in the Midwest. Use promo code COTEL. You'll get 10% off. You'll be able to help me out and get some great products. So if you're in the market, go check out orthodoxdepot.com. Use promo code COTEL. All right. So with that now being said, let's bring our first gentleman on. What's going on, brother?
Oh, hi. Hello. Thanks, David. First of all, thanks for your program, because it's really helped me with my transition from Catholicism to Orthodoxy. So.
Oh, well, thank you, brother. I appreciate you hopping on and being a participant and joining. Are you a catechumen?
Yeah, currently I'm a catechumen. Yes.
Nice. What jurisdiction you
in? I think it's the Russian church. I think it's the Russian church outside of Russia. I'm not actually sure exactly which of the two. Still, yeah. I haven't really been savvy about the details, but yeah, it's the Orthodox Church in Florence. It's the only one.
So where are you at right now?
Close to Florence. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Well, welcome, brother. What are your thoughts? So to get it started, you're the first one on. You saw the topic at hand. Is it the year of chaos, 2024? You'll give us maybe more of a European perspective. What's your thoughts on the coming year?
So I think, like you said, just to sort of start on the positive, I think there's going to be a boom of Orthodox converts, especially from Catholicism, especially because of the fiducia supplicans and all the stuff that's been going on, with the church right now, with the Roman Catholic Church. So I think that there's going to be more and more people sort of realizing the inherent problems with the papacy, and especially with the current status of the church post VC2. So I think we're going to get a lot of people jumping in that, into Orthodoxy from Catholicism, especially.
I think you're right there. I think we're already seeing it. I mean, it's the Pope splainers are strong at hand, the people trying to defend the papacy and what's going on. But I've seen so many Catholics basically throw their hands up. They can't defend what's going on anymore. And Pope Francis has been one of the greatest apologists for the Orthodox Church.
Yeah, definitely, because he's very hard to defend. And I think so that's the positive. I think that we're going to see boom in Orthodoxy, and especially, I would say, a rediscovery of the tradition, sort of put in a newer light, let's say. So that's a positive. For the negative, well, obviously we're gonna see an increase in war tension. Sweden has said that they're expecting a war. I
didn't hear about this. They're expecting a war with Russia?
They were saying something about Russia possibly invading.
I did see something about Sweden sending troops to, what was it, Lithuania, to bolster the border with Ukraine or something like that. So I saw that they were getting involved, but I didn't hear that explicitly.
Yeah. It's gonna. So they're definitely expecting something.
Yep.
Then there's been the surprise event that they've been talking about. So I think there's going to be a lot of problems with infrastructure and communication. We might see sort of the beginning of the Great Reset with the internet censorship laws. Those I think are going to be a thing, or at least they're going to start implementing them.
Well, in regards to that, I know, because one of our premium members is in Greece, that they already have their digital IDs that are input, and they have to have those finished by 2025 or they can't participate in economic life in Greece. And again, why is it that they chose Greece out of all the European nations in the EU? They chose Greece to begin their digital IDs.
Yeah.
I think obviously, as an Orthodox Christian, I think there's a spiritual component there.
Oh, yeah,
unfortunately, Greece, the national government funds the salaries of all clergy in the Greek Orthodox Church, which maybe 100 years ago seemed to be a good thing because it was a solid source of income. But since obviously the pandemic, we see how that is incredibly manipulative force, and how that led so many clergy to go ahead and promote something that wasn't conducive or ideal for their spiritual flock. So we've already seen in Greece, they've already got, it's the first place. You think it'd come in like Germany or Spain or one of these more openly liberal societies, but no, it's Greece. They got it going right now. So like you said, I think that's already started. They've already picked a few countries where they're already issuing that.
Not to mention Georgia as well, being like they've got the problems going on right now in Georgia. There's been unrest, a lot of civil unrest going on. So yeah, we're definitely going to see a lot of unrest in countries. We're going to see civil wars, or at least something getting close. Yeah, I think in the US as well. I mean, they're doing that civil war film now. It's called Civil War. I think the title is like Civil War, where it's like, oh, Texas and California, like they ally against the, I don't know, something. And it's like, yeah, I think they're sort of trying to put the word out that it's going to happen at some point. So that's one thing. The other, I think we're going to see a lot of increase in UFO activity. Yeah, which is the aliens.
Yeah.
Yeah. which are demons. I mean, like they're freaking interdimensional demons. But yeah, that's what's going to happen. So we're going to see a lot of alien sightings, possibly something akin to the Battle of Los Angeles, which was 1948, I think. The one where they actually fired rounds at a supposed UFO, and there was like casualties and that. So I think there's going to be something like that.
Right. That makes sense too.
And then I'm gonna go full Protestant street preacher. So don't take my word for it. But I don't know if you've seen a while back, Klaus Schwab said that he wanted to microchip everyone by 2026. And the microchip is obviously going to be the mark of the beast. I mean, I think at this point it's pretty obvious that it's going to be something like that. And my theory, again, I'm going to be very speculative, but I think that my theory will be that we will see the rise of the beast this year, and the beast will be a sentient AI, a so-called sentient AI. So we're gonna, they're gonna say, "Oh, we just achieved singularity," and this thing can now speak, and it's gonna say things that people will go, "Wow, this is so deep and so." Amazing. And then it's going to start saying, well, religion, blah, blah, blah. It's dated. He's going to debunk, Christianity. I think that's going to happen. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just jumping the shark, but I can see that.
I think you're on to something. As I've said before, one of my good friends who I just met with, he's very connected in the tech world, and he's had meetings with very high up people that have developed the AI who are very much believers in it and have recently said that it's much more advanced than the public is aware of. And this was an atheist materialist guy, and he said that it's weird because it's becoming quite clear that this is about the soul. This is about again, he wasn't a Christian, but he was saying to my Christian friend, yeah, it's weird. It's taken turns where it's about like capturing the soul of humanity. And then as Christians, we're like, well, yeah, this all makes sense.
Well, because again, to sort of quote Alex Jones, I mean, not the best guy to quote necessarily, but I think he is onto something when he said that basically their plan is to sort of have a hive mind intelligence where everybody is connected to this AI through the microchip. Right. And that, there was actually a Catholic priest a whole while back, I forgot his name, a French Catholic priest who was supportive of this kind of thing. And he said, we're going to have the noosphere, which is going to be this collective consciousness through the magnetosphere. I think it was something like that.
PR Teilhard de Chardin.
Yeah, and the magnetosphere, is connected to demonic activity. I think it's what the pagans used to call the world soul. So, and I definitely see something like that happening, and that's why also the soft disclosures. I don't think there's going to be a full disclosure, but I think the soft disclosures of aliens and that kind of stuff, because obviously we're going to get to the ecological disasters and the war and the complete drying up of the Jordan. And then, that's going to be World War III. And then you're going to have the impure spirits like frogs, like gray aliens and frogs. They sort of look similar as well. And that's going to be, getting the kings of the earth all together to wage war against God. Because then at that point, you're going to have, people are going to follow the aliens, like in visitors, like in, that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
We had a super chat come in over on the YouTube. Circle G throws in $5. Thank you so much, Circle G. He says Frank Herbert Dune was right about AI. He certainly was. Again, those are just private conversations. My buddy's asked to remain anonymous, but he was okay with me sharing some of the stuff because this was a private conversation we're having. I was like, man, do you care if I talk about some of this? He's like, yeah, just, don't mention my name or any of the people I'm talking to you about. But very, very interesting what's happening regarding the tech world and the actual state of all this advanced artificial intelligence and the Cold War. I mean, there's a Cold War amongst these groups, amongst Google, amongst ChatGPT, amongst Tesla AI, Russia, China, to get to the first advanced general artificial intelligence. And so, what's going to happen from that point? Who knows? Who knows? But thank you so much, Circle G, for the super chat. And anybody who wants to support the stream, you got comments, you got questions, send them in, please. Use Streamlabs or the Dono chat links. They're in the video description. Or if you prefer to use YouTube, use YouTube. If you're in a giving spirit for the topic, you support the work, give some COTEL Crew memberships here on the YouTube. Would be greatly appreciative of that. And I know some of the other people and the audience would be as well. So if anybody wants to support the work, please do that. Now, I want to bring Ivan on because he's one of the regulars, and I know he's going to have some interesting ideas. Ivan, what are your thoughts moving into 2024? I would suspect that you're not too far off of. And by the way, how do we say your name? Cavarex?
Yeah, that's not my real name. That's like
well,
my
whatever the handle. You don't have to use your real name if you don't want to. But how do you want to refer to you as?
Nick is okay. It's Nicola,
Nick.
but Nick is fine. Yeah.
So you heard Nick's kind of opening statements, of which I basically agree with everything he said. Ivan, what are your thoughts, brother?
Well, I think that we're going to see a lot of shifts in narratives, and I think we're going to see how, like, the hawks separate from the doves. Like, we're going to see a fake right wing start to struggle to gain elections, like what happened in Spain, and we're going to have like a very big awakening in terms of intellectual ideas. So we're going to see a lot of people like, I don't know, for example, Jordan Peterson perhaps become Orthodox or sort of Orthodox. We're going to start seeing a lot of people from the alternative right wing start making a lot of sense and becoming more mainstream. And we're going to see big criticisms of democracy. So I think that that's one of the things. And another, I think, like you said at the beginning, Patrick, I think that there's going to be a golden age of Orthodoxy. So it's going to become more apparent that Orthodoxy is the only path forward.
Yeah. And you probably heard me mention that that's what Father Peter Heers has explicitly stated. And it feels like that's what almost we're in the beginning of. I mean, we've talked about this in previous streams. I think the last open panel was on why men love Orthodoxy. But the unprecedented growth in the West and its relationship to overall population, like we're under 1% of the U.S. population. I wouldn't be surprised in 10 years if it's not 5%. And that's a massive growth in a demographic, especially young men, which I think is incredibly hopeful because, you know, what is it, like the 10% rule? Like if you have 10%, you can have like a revolution. This was the case for the American Revolution with how many people actually did, maybe was ideologically supportive, but didn't want to fight. But there was a fervor amongst at least 10% of you know, fighting age men that was able to mount a militia. That if we had 5 to 10% of the U.S. population were devout Orthodox Christians, I mean, that's a game changer, especially with how many babies they're going to have.
Definitely agreed, man. I think that we have to navigate these waters very carefully, in the sense that I see a lot of cuckery within the Orthodox Church too, but
yeah.
I don't hold it against it, in the sense that I think that Orthodoxy is still the way to go. It still has everything that we need. But I think that we have to also be a force to re-enliven the church from within, because let's take the example of people like us who are very intellectually minded and let's say articulate or charismatic, or perhaps very interested in the mythological and the cosmological aspects and the theological aspects of the faith. There are lots of let's say cradle Orthodox that don't have that same zeal for the truth, the same approach to Orthodoxy itself. And I think that we have to let's say be very steadfast against a certain form of iconoclasm. Like every different church has different let's say problems, but for example, right now I'm going to a Russian Orthodox church, and it's got its fair share of, let's say, tough-minded men, which is very good. But at the same time, there's a lot of, let's say, resentment because of the war, because there are Ukrainians and Russians there, and
Right.
there's a contingent within the church that is very against, let's say, the new converts. So they look at the new converts with suspicion. Those people are the same cucks that like don't take the faith seriously and want to play along with the world, or I don't know, just wanted to. And I think there are going to be frictions within the church itself. So we have to be careful, and we have to be, let's say, tactful, but not compromise on what we believe the truth to be. And we need priests to let's say be aware of these situations, so that they can, let's say, take part, so that we act in a way that is not, let's say, a takeover, because it wouldn't be proper to go into the church as a recent convert and try to change things up. So there's a balance to be struck.
Well, and that's an important one for Western people. Again, many of the converts are aware of that, but there's a Western sentiment to go in and change things or make things more in our image. And Orthodoxy, that's why it's so great, is it doesn't change, and that we conform to it. It does not conform to us. And so I think for some people, they're attracted to the tradition for those reasons, but when they get in, then they want to compromise on certain things. And it's like, no, bro, that's not how it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what else do you think? Definitely a growth in Orthodoxy. I think we all agree in that. What about, the big one in 2024, obviously, is the elections. I've been skeptical that we will even have an election here in the United States. Obviously, there's been attempts to take Trump off the ballot in the states of Colorado and Maine. Those seem to be unsuccessful. There was, I believe, an attempt in New York that was thwarted by the Supreme Court. Tucker Carlson, in one video I mentioned this, said that when they went to the UFC fight with Kid Rock, Dana White, and the both of them, he turned to Trump and said that he wouldn't be, again, this was after he got like a standing ovation from the UFC crowd. He said, I wouldn't be surprised if the powers that be try to assassinate you. He said Trump looked at him, he heard him, and then he didn't respond to anything, to that idea whatsoever. And rightfully so. I mean, who wants to talk about the potentiality of their own assassination? But I just think something dramatic is going to happen probably this summer that's going to thwart, or maybe in the fall, that's going to thwart any typical election cycle. Could be another pandemic, could be martial law, could be World War III, could be any of these different things, could be a grid outage. Who knows? But what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, I think go ahead.
No, I was saying if you want to go ahead and say, yeah.
Okay. I think that it's very tempting to think that there's a master plan, in the sense, of course there is a master plan, but I don't think that the reins are so tightly held, because there are too many factors to control. I think that what's going on is that we're being set up to fall for a fake dialectic, and I think perhaps Trump unwittingly participates in that fake dialectic, in the sense that, well, for example, I don't know, Javier Milei, the president of Argentina, is flying, I think, in a couple of weeks or something like that, to a Davos meeting. So, of course, I think that these right-wing figures are kind of part of the classical liberal dialectic they're setting up, and they're trying to slowly cook the people and stew them. So the people themselves demand the AI authoritarian government, or whatever it is that these people have in mind. But I don't think they will succeed. Perhaps I'm trying to be hopeful, maybe, but I don't think they will succeed, because the worse off they look, the more people we gain over. So, for example, what Pope Francis did, I think that's one of the most egregious mistakes that these people make. They think so highly of themselves, and so little of the rest, that they're gonna trip up, and people are gonna be able to see through it. At least that's my hope.
Yeah. Nick, what are your thoughts, brother?
Yeah, definitely, I agree. I think in fact this whole woke thing that we had for so long, well, at least since 2015, is essentially a way to sort of have the counter reaction going, and I don't necessarily see it as a positive, in the sense that, like, I think that traditionalism is good if it is within the Orthodox mindset, but if it's detached from the Orthodox mindset, if it's detached from actual values, then it's empty. And I think that what they want to achieve is what the whole Hegelian dialectic, right and left. What they want to achieve is a synthesis, right? So it's going to be a bit of the left, a bit of the right. It's going to be something. It's going to be a mix, an eclectic mix that's sort of going to please everyone, because that's ultimately what they want to achieve. And it's going to be tyranny, but it's going to be slowly sort of presented to them, because it's not going to be just a thing that is just going to roll out on red carpet, because it's the classic story of the frog being boiled very slowly, and as well with the war. I mean, the war is going to be like World War III is going, because it's inevitable. In fact, way before the Russian conflict, I met an influential general, who told me that the war between America and China was inevitable. So so basically, yeah, I mean, this is it's been common knowledge in the military spheres for a while, and but it's going to be something like, it's going to happen very fast.
Right.
It's not going to be World War II when it's going to last 10 years because of the technology involved and the kind of war that they're going to fight, but it's going to be presented slowly. So I think it's going to be probably within 2025, 2026. We're going to have to wait a little bit more for that to happen, but we're going to set the stage for that.
Right.
So yeah, I definitely see that happening.
In regards to setting the stage, and we'll bring in, hey Jay, if you're able to turn your camera on, brother, we'd appreciate that, if you're able. But in regards to setting the stage, that's where me doing some research on some recent streams on like the French and Russian Revolution, without the economic turmoil of people not having access to food, those ideas wouldn't have been able to spread and gain the fervor that they had. And so it's like, well, to get us to adopt the ideologies and the system that they want, they have to make so much chaos and make life so difficult to live that we will accept it willingly.
Not to mention, let me just add, the lack of trust, of societal trust, and that I think will also happen through conspiracy theories becoming more and more prevalent, which look at the first piece of news. I'm not going to mention what it is for YouTube. I don't want to have a channel strike or anything, but look at what just happened. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
So there's going to be more and more things coming that way, I think, and I think that's going to set off a lot of people, and they're going to say, we don't trust the government, we don't trust the media, we don't trust anyone. And so when you have that distrust, when you have that, I mean, we don't trust them either, but that's besides the point. It's when you don't have anything to cling to because you don't have a church, right? You don't have Christ, you don't have eternal values. You just have whatever comes your way. And so you got the internet, and you got all this junk. And by the way, this is what will also lead to the digital data, all the acts and all the things that they're going to do in terms of censorship, which will actually, I mean, as far back as I think it was 2001, 2002, something like that, Metal Gear Solid 2, an old video game, they had this whole thing at the end where there was like the Patriots, and they're going to use AI, and they're going to, do censorship of the internet. This was ages ago. and they were already putting that stuff in video games and TV shows and that kind of stuff. And they were,
Yep. We had a super chat came in from our sister, Slowboy Whiteboard, been a COTEL crew member for 10 months. Thank you so much, Kristen. She says, thanks for all the great content. God bless you and your family in 2024. God bless you and your family, Kristen. Wish you guys the absolute best. And guys, would love if you guys want to join the COTEL crew. You get access to exclusive emojis. We need, I think, 16 more members, and we'll be able to add a new emoji for the members. So please sign up if you want to support the stream. And also, if you got any questions or comments, please send those in on Streamlabs or Dono Chat. Would greatly appreciate that. Want to bring Jay in. I know that you mentioned the private chat. Your camera doesn't work. All good, brother. But what are some of your thoughts on the topic at hand?
Yeah, hey, I just want to mention that I'm basically a new brother just looking to, convert to Orthodox Christianity.
Glory to God.
And your channel has helped me a lot. So I just came to thank you for your channel, because it gave me a lot of reasonings to go into the church and find the truth.
Well, I'm humbled, brother. Thank you, and glory to God that the Spirit led you, man. That's you putting the work in and trying to find truth.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. So what are your thoughts about, if you don't mind, you don't need to share any personal details, but where are you at in the world, just so we know the context of kind of what you're seeing, and what are your thoughts on 2024?
I'm basically in England.
Okay.
So I'm from that region, Western Europe. So obviously you guys, I think it's the same kind of problems that is affecting America is kind of happening here as well, with all these woke culture and promotion of feminist feminism and Marxism and all of that is kind of taken over here as well. Mm-hmm. So it's affecting a lot of the younger generation. So it's about trying to find the truth and trying to go with that and trying to find something that you feel confident about, because at the end of the day, following these kinds of culture is going to lead to a dead end.
Yep.
It's not going to free your soul. Your soul is always going to be empty.
Yep. I totally agree. Doesn't England have an election this year in 2024?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. What do you have any thoughts on the state of, since you're in England right now, the state of mass immigration, the state on, again, I haven't been to London, but what I'm witnessing online could be inaccurate, but okay. Yes. This gentleman says, the UK does have an election this year. I thought you guys did. I thought the US and the UK and a lot of European nations did.
I wasn't, to be honest, I wasn't 100% sure, because it might be election this year, but I'm not sure.
It's all good.
Is it mayor election or the actual main one? I wasn't sure.
What are your thoughts on the general culture and societal ethos in England moving forward in 2024?
Moving to 24, I would say it will be the same kind of things. I don't think it's gonna be the same kind of promotion of multiculturalism and trying to sort of bring in new ideas. I'm just trying to think. It's going to be the same kind of promotion of woke culture, and there's not going to be any sort of a change to the more nuclear family structure that we had in the past. It's still going to be the same kind of thing. I don't think it's going to change much. Whoever becomes the new prime minister or president, they're still going to promote the same ideologies. I don't think it's going to change much.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with you there. Looks like Ivan had to hop out. It could have been his connection. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, he said be right back. So what do you guys think about, again, getting or receiving potential domestic terror attacks? This is something that maybe this is more of the U.S. context. Both you guys are in Europe. Is that something that the general populace is talking about or worried about? Because here in the U.S., I would say people that are right of center are suspecting that. You know, we've had even Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, who we know he's super corrupt, part of the establishment, but he began warning the United States populace about the amount of Muslims that have come across the southern border, and that the likelihood of a potential terrorist attack is the highest it's ever been since 9/11. It's like, but of course they're the ones that are keeping the southern border open. But what are your guys' thoughts on that? Is that the same rhetoric that you're hearing in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to mention. I thought the U.S. had more of like an immigration from Latin America, right? So you have more Catholics coming in rather than Muslims.
Yeah, we do, but also the amount of immigration is so much larger that, you know, the month of December was almost 400,000 people. 38,000 of those could be Muslim, and that's you know, and then we already have different areas we have a city in Michigan. That is predominantly Muslim, is basically an entirely Muslim city. So my point isn't just to focus on Muslims per se, but, you know, with the rhetoric of the war with Iran, let's say Iran basically sent a message to some of the Houthi rebels that, hey, it's go time, take down one of the transformers, one of the power stations, and a quarter of the grid goes out. You know, that's what I mean. That's a potential problem. Maybe more jihadist type that we saw out of, you know, the radical forms of Islam that was propagated by Saudi Arabia, but the Wahhabis, stuff like that. Obviously, that's not indicative of all Muslims whatsoever. Those are particular groups, but just the general rhetoric here in the United States, so many people are coming in and then they're getting boarding passes to get on flights that have no names. We don't even know who they are or where they came from. They don't even have to give us that information. I saw in Germany a week ago, 3 gentlemen raped a woman, and she was walking with her husband. They were both German citizens, and they beat her husband. They were older. They were like in their 50s, and forced him to watch his wife get raped by 3 individuals, of which they were immigrants that had like 10 different aliases of a particular culture that views women outside their tradition as lower and deserved of that type of abuse. So, and as false flags. There could be many opportunities, as I believe too, that the FBI would do a false flag to blame it on the domestic populace. So I was just curious if that is a conversation that is live and active in the United States. I was curious if that's also conversation in Europe.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'll let you go. You have your say, bro.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. I mean, obviously in Italy, you know, we've had more and more waves of immigration. So, you know, obviously we've always been a hotspot for immigrants to enter Europe through Lampedusa, and they go up to the north. Usually they sort of treat Italy more as a country of passage that they're usually sort of stuck in because they cannot go to the rest of Europe. But we've had a lot of tensions recently, and also basically I think it was, I don't remember who said this, but one of the Muslim leaders said that Italy is part of the axis of evil because we've sent the Fazan Brigade, a military brigade. We send them in the Mediterranean to aid NATO against the Houthi, you know, and so we're part of that operation. And so I, you know, hope that we won't get targeted, but I expect to, because it's been a long time coming. I mean, they've been threatening Italy for a long time. So, but nothing's ever happened.
And what are your thoughts on your female prime minister? Because didn't she get elected by giving like some really strict, more?
No,
I thought she was considered to be like a right-wing Nazi according to mainstream media.
I mean, technically she's from the fascist, you know, like youth, but like the minute she stepped in, you know, she was just kissing Biden's feet and kissing von der Leyen's feet and just we're just going to continue the Draghi agenda. Draghi was the president of the Central European Bank, and he was the guy who was behind the privatization of the Italian, the entire Italian state apparatus that Berlusconi carried out. And Berlusconi, who was a prime minister for a long time, he was part of the masonry. He was part of the P2. And this is the P2 lodge. You can, P2. If you want to go, anyone who's listening, if you want to go and look up the history, it's crazy. Like, these guys attempted a coup. They killed, I don't know how many people in Italy with bombs and all sorts of false flags and things and different attacks. And, it was like the right wing and the left wing in bed with the Catholic Church was involved. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. The years of lead. That's the time. Yeah, no, we've never had good politicians for since the 80s. Since the 80s, our politics have sucked more and more.
Yeah, and
it's empty promise after empty promise, and she's just another one in a long line of politicians. We basically had, people from the high finance like Mario Draghi, like Mario Monti before him in these emergency governments. We couldn't even go to an election for 12 years. That's how crazy it is.
Yeah, it's just politicians. They just promise, but they never deliver, right? So it's just typical. I mean, in England, we've got this. Obviously, we're talking about Islam earlier. We've got certain Muslim ghettos, right, where if you go there, you kind of feel out of place. It's a bit sort of like, it's like obviously with I'm not saying it's specific. Obviously, you get some Muslims who are moderate, and then you get Muslims who are entirely fixated on their religion, and they don't really want to assimilate to the Western culture. They want to bring their sort of way of life and kind of force it onto us, which is not really the right way to go to do things. It's like, if you look at any other immigrant group, they tend to assimilate more than from my experience than Islamic ones, because they tend to sort of adhere to their religion more than the others. This is why we get all these terrorist attacks happening. We had quite a few in England before, but a few of them have been stopped. Now in England, they've got like something that they bought people from ISIS back, and there's like a government program monitoring them at the cost of the taxpayer, just to monitor these people to stop them doing any sort of harm.
Yep. Yeah. Jay, may we ask what your spiritual background was before looking into Orthodoxy?
Yeah, basically, it's a good question, because I'm basically mixed. So basically my mom was Hindu, my dad was Christian, Protestant. So I grew up as a Protestant, and kind of I was mixed in with Hinduism. So I was like spiritual kind of thing. I wasn't like fully, I didn't know what path to take. So eventually I kind of figured out if I was, I used to go to a Baptist church when I was younger, and I also went to Hindu temples when I was young. So eventually I had to sort of figure out what the right religion is, because, Christianity is what attracted me. And I knew that Protestants, they didn't give the full sort of Christian way of doing things. So that's why I looked into Orthodoxy. I kind of fell away for a bit. After I was Protestant, I was a bit atheist for a while, I was sinning a lot. I was, following the woke culture, kind of fell away. But before I realized that I had to, have God in my life if I was to save my soul.
Right. Amen. We got a super chat that came in from Jay, throws in 10 pounds and says, "Welcome to New London. Everybody is happy here. Our perfect society achieved peace and stability through prohibition of monogamy, privacy, money, family, and history itself. Now everyone belongs." Huxley. Yeah. Unfortunately, that seems to be the general tone and tenor of all Western societies. Again, the Agenda 21 and the collapse of the first world is at foot for sure. And Jay, I want to thank you so much, brother, for the 10 pounds. God bless you. Thank you for your support. And if anybody else wants to send in some comments or some questions, feel free to do so either on YouTube or preferably on Streamlabs or the Dono chat. That would be greatly beneficial to me. So thank you guys. So did you see the farmer protest in Germany? Now, again, is that popular in European news right now? Because we catch it in the U.S. mostly on X. I think Tucker Carlson talked about it on his X show, but pretty silent in general on U.S. media on the farmer revolt in Germany, which was pretty massive in Berlin. What's the sort of basis of that in European news?
We've actually had our farmers have announced they've announced that they want to do the same. I don't know. I haven't been really watching the news lately, to be honest, for my own mental health. But I haven't really, like, I sort of did switch on a few times, and I haven't really seen much about it. I think they're trying to keep it a bit as hush as possible, for obvious reasons. But yeah, they've also announced the same thing here. They said that they want to do a nationwide strike. Yeah, because I think another big thing that's going to happen is going to be the monopoly of food. Through Monsanto, through these kind of companies. That's going to be a big thing that's going to happen this year.
Exactly. I think they're going to go after food. They've already, again, undercut like fertilizer, food production. They went after the farmers in the Netherlands. Now they're going after Germany, where a lot of agricultural production is done. Because, again, they need food scarcity, not only to depopulate, but to get people in a state of terror so that they'll accept the ideas and the structures that are coming forward. So, that's why you look in the United States, we got Bill Gates, who now is the largest farm landowner in our country. And yet he also owns all the patents for the Impossible meat and all the synthetic garbage that they want us to eat. So they want you to not be able to have a good diet. They want you to be fat and lazy with low testosterone. And they want you to live in these cities. And so the way to get people to do that is to force people to limit their food production. And I think that's happening. We're seeing that all over the West right now. And I hope people are going to become more aware of that this year. But again, if they undermine some of the necessities farmers need to produce their crops, I mean, what can the farmers do? And that seems to be what their intention is.
Yeah. Plus, I think they want to also severely limit meat, which, obviously we have the monastics who are basically vegan, and I respect individual choices. I've been a vegetarian for 8 years myself, but meat is good for you. Obviously not great quantities. Obviously, the way factory farming is conducted, especially on a bigger scale, is, I think, inhumane. But that being said, they're definitely going to go against meat as much as possible, because you must eat the bugs, and so we're going to start seeing new alternatives to meat, so as well the cloned meat, that they were talking about bringing that in, which who knows what that will do to our bodies. Although I think it's going to be a bit of an expensive alternative for the rich, but the poor are just going to have the bugs. They're going to have, and it's crazy. We've already had bug stuff here in Italy, and they're already speaking about putting bugs in food, which is like, for us Italians, is like, so our food culture is so important and to us, and yeah, they just want to do that. And obviously most people don't want it, but I think that, given the state of my country, they're just going to accept it like they've always done. Our spirit has been subjugated a long time ago. So
absolutely. One of our good French Canadians, Jesse, throws in just a comment there in the live chat and says, a French farmer has problems with the town hall. His pigs get shot or poisoned. They close the only road that goes to his farm. He brought a 200-pound dead pig into the mayor's office. Wow. Well, here in the United States, we just had a FBI raid, or was it the Marshals? I forget. It may have been U.S. Marshals had raided an Amish farm, I believe in Pennsylvania last week. And meanwhile, again, we have open borders. We know of an elite pedophile network that's been exposed. And U.S. resources are going to Amish farmers because they're illegally selling organic food to their local community. Again, it shows you the priorities. It shows you what's really going on here.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, it's crazy, and I think that people in general, all over the world, they're starting to notice this more and more. They're starting to see, yeah, there's this injustice. There's this lack of compassion for the common people, and they're just protecting the interests of the wealthy elite, who are just saying, yeah, you have to die because you don't we don't want you to reproduce. Be fruitful and multiply. Huh? What's all that about? So you have Jane Goodall, who was the I think she was a Pulitzer Prize or Nobel Prize, I forget.
Yeah,
But the one,
for her
the
apes.
Yeah, and she's like, yeah, we have to have less children, less people, in the world, which is basically just Malthusian ethics, or lack thereof, and just this whole thing, which is actually what started abortion. It was never about your body, your choice. It was never about empowering the woman. It was always about selecting the right genes, and the countries that did it first was Soviet Union, and then Nazi Germany, and then Japan during the Hirohito reign. And so it was always about eugenics, and we've seen that with the Georgia Guidestones. And I think there's actually we're gonna start seeing some of that population collapse. It's gonna start going down.
Yeah, and I wonder what they're going to do to Africa, because Africa is experiencing a massive population boom right now, and obviously they were very reluctant during the coup to take some of their prescribed medication, and of course a massive swath of Africa is on anti-malarial medication, i.e. ivermectin and stuff like that. And so interesting how exactly some of these globalists may go after a country like that. Want to welcome Father Deacon Dr. Ananias on the show, head of Patristic Faith. Welcome, my brother.
Head of the United States of America. Hi, guys. God bless you. Christ is born. Let's glorify him.
Glorify him. We had a super chat come in from Philo Logis, throws in £5 and says, sorry, I missed the start. Who are you saying is behind this? Who are they? Well, we're not a program that is into naming things, because obviously we want to stay within the bounds of TOS. I would answer that question by saying, obviously, it's the evil one. And just read your book of Revelation, look into the Orthodox Church and the theology of the Antichrist and how that's going to emerge and where that's going to come from. But it's, there's a lot of people from a lot of different groups that are contributing to the same problem. And it's ultimately a degradation of the soul and the image of God within us. So I know what you're getting at, and but we obviously have to play within the rules since we're on YouTube.
We could say technocrats, right?
Yeah, technocrats. There we go.
Yeah, that's
so. What? Thanks for joining and hopping on. Curious, what are some of your thoughts? We talked about, if you missed the beginning, some positives like the growth in Orthodoxy, which is happening both in Europe and North America, but also some potential negatives that may come about here in 2024. What are your general thoughts looking into this year?
There's a lot of, like you said, a lot of things to be grateful for at the parish level. I'm so grateful for Father Russell and the priests.
Yes, love Father Russell.
And St. Herman's in Kalispell is just bursting from the seams too. Great Falls. We're just, it seems like every 2 weeks we're making somebody a catechumen or baptizing families, so it's growing, and that's just amazing, especially for such a small populated area as Montana. It really makes me excited. At the same time, I'm trying to kind of prepare for, we're gonna have a real rough go this year, just politically. I think it's good to kind of be on guard and watchful.
Yeah.
I think a couple different things. Some of the mandates are coming down in states, at least first through the kind of health. I thought to be honest, I thought they would do that earlier. There's a term I want to share with you. It's called stalking horse. Have you ever heard of stalking horse?
Mm-mm.
It's a hunter term where you either take like a facade, a fake horse, or a real horse, and with your hunter gun, you walk alongside of it as you're going by the elk. And what you're doing is you're testing to see when you can actually get them, when would be the opportune time. You may not. You may realize that, hey, look, because what happens is the elk won't run in front of another animal like a horse. Now, other animals, they will. So then this becomes kind of an analogy that they use that politically people will do a stalking horse, or even just in corporations too, to kind of test the grounds to see when's the opportune time, when to kind of go back and then rethink the issue and come up with another plan and stuff. And I think a lot of that's kind of going on. People are saying, see, look, it didn't come. They didn't come with the lockdowns and the COOF and stuff like that. Well, they're doing stalking horse. And so I think they're gathering data. I think they have multiple kind of plans of attack. But they're already starting to implement some of the mandates. I know in California through the healthcare industry and stuff like that. My main concern you had brought up is going into the elections. I'm with you. I don't think, my suspicion is there's no way that they can allow the election to take place.
I don't think so either.
That overall faith and trust in the electoral and voting process is gone. And they had an opportunity in 2020 to go through with the hearings and investigations, and they didn't. Now, what did the judges say? There wasn't enough evidence to see. Well, that doesn't force you. As a judge, you always have the discretion to, well, I could still hear, even though I don't think there's enough evidence. You have the authority and prerogative to be, I'm going to hear it anyways. I'm going to look. So it's very odd that they didn't, because that would, at least in the public's mind, assured some type of voter integrity, correct?
Yeah.
So at the least, suppose there wasn't any evidence,
right,
or very few evidence to be here. Why wouldn't you hear and investigate it anyways? As far as voter corruption, just to instill trust back in the system.
Right.
So keep that in mind. So trust is gone, and we're going into an election year. And so what are we already seeing? He's been removed from the ballot in Colorado, and then Maine took that as a legal precedent, calling upon the 14th Amendment, which is a total misapplication, if anybody knows. That was established after the Civil War because they were worried about Southern insurrectionists getting into office and overthrowing the government through union. And again, you'd have to be convicted of something. You can't just have accusations. So this is going to be really interesting. It's all being kicked up to the Supreme Court. My concern is it going to be heard and decided in time?
Right.
I went to a really interesting debate. One of my colleagues, a philosophy and theology professor, was in a debate with another conservative, a never Trumper. They were both pro-life, and one was saying no Christian could ever vote for Trump on moral grounds.
Mm-hmm.
And the other, the philosophy professor, was saying, look, he may not be my ideal candidate, but I think obviously you can as a Christian morally, and that you should if he were to be the candidate for the Republican Party. Okay, so all of this in the debate brought up some really interesting issues. So my concern is the general lack of trust in voting integrity. Whatever the outcome, what is both sides going to do? They're going to deny the election results.
Right.
Okay. And I think what you're going to get is, and I'm just playing out possible scenarios.
Right.
Red states come together and refuse to accept the election and possibly move towards some type of secession. Blue states, likewise. All of this is a recipe for disaster, for a civil war.
Right.
Because then what's going to happen is they're going to actually get a hold of the National Guard and military units, and they're going to force the situation. The other way this could play out too is, and this is what the philosophy professor said, these states start taking Trump off the ballot, then he says what's going to happen and what should happen is the other states should just accuse Biden of insurrection and do the same. And this is the problem, I think, with the left and the Dems. All the actions that they've taken and accusations has just opened the door for the other side to do the exact same thing.
Yep.
And I was talking with my brother yesterday, and I'm like, it's really unfortunate because we're at the point, we're beyond the tipping point. The waves crack. There's the point of no return, right? There's no dialogue with the other side politically. And it's gone so far that I really can't see a way back. And so what's going to happen, one way that this could happen too is, again, that could be they take Biden off the ballots on the red states, and the blue states do the same. And what do you get? You're going to get the same problem. So again, third option is they've got to cancel the election. They've got to come up with a way that the elections don't happen. I'm with you. I think it's a very real possibility that they'll have a proxy assassinate Trump, and then another proxy assassinate Biden, who obviously the Dems don't care about anyways. He's a walking zombie,
right?
Like he's just a figurehead.
Yeah.
So he could easily be sacrificed, and that's enough to ignite the ire of both sides and the people. And I think that's what they want. And then you could declare martial law, right? So crisis reaction solution.
Yep.
Would be a possible. I'm just giving possible. I don't know, right?
Bro,
they always kind of surprise me with like what they pull out. That I'm like, well, I didn't see that coming. I mean, kind of generally speaking,
right.
So I think there is no political solution to political problems. These political problems. There's no way back. I invest, and I want to see more of this. All of my time and energy with the people closest to me. We talked about, remember, Patrick, when we did the conference together, first things first.
Yeah.
Put first the kingdom of God. My responsibility is to my wife. Then it moves outward, right? Invest all in kind of local communities, my church and my town, right? And as an educator and clergy member, it's my duty to instill virtues in the people. And it may just be like that going forward, that there's a kind of balkanization and I don't know what's the term, more of these kind of intentional communities. So it's not a political solution, it's a solution at the local level. And maybe that after the system fails, maybe that plays out that way. That's kind of my hope. Yeah. And really, it's the only thing I have control over.
Right.
I can help the people around me. I can't do anything with regards to all this other stuff going on. So those are kind of my general thoughts on going into the election cycle? And
Yeah. Well, I have one comment in relation to what you just said. It came up in our little think tank, our last premium members group this past Wednesday. We were it got onto this topic, and some of the guys were kind of optimistic that as they try to push people towards these 15-minute cities and get them inside the cities and get them on the grid, that they may just leave the people outside alone. So as we talked about Greece, they have their digital IDs and they're not going to be able to participate in economic life starting in 2025. Well, that's now yet less than a year. They brought these digital IDs out in mid 2023. So Greece is under attack. And let's say they try to move forward to some degree, maybe this year or the next few years in the United States, that maybe there's just an alternative system that's outside basically these city confines. And yeah, it's going to be a little bit more primitive. You're not going to be on the new internet, the Starlink internet, once our internet goes down and forces us to get on this registered internet where everything's controlled. Who knows? So that's where some of the guys were optimistic. They thought, well, maybe, again, they just can't devote that many resources. And America is so large that the people that are outside on these city grids, maybe they'll have an opportunity for a decade or maybe 50 years, maybe multiple generations, where they basically kind of form communities and lifestyles that are totally divorced from this interconnected giant grid city system. That might be a possibility.
I knew that 4 years ago. That's why I moved to Montana, is that I'm like, it's totally ineffective and inefficient to go round up everybody in a rural community. Like, you go, the easiest thing is cities, right?
Right.
It's the easiest thing to control. They'll invest all their efforts and time and energy and money in cities.
Right. I want to bring BLA. Welcome, my brother. God bless you. What's going on?
What's up,
man?
everybody? What's up?
up,
I
brother?
hope everybody's going to have a good long weekend here, y'all. It's the long weekend. We're all chilling. We're doing a Friday chill stream here. I'm glad to. What an awesome panel. You guys have been talking about some great stuff. Father Deacon, good to hear from
Good to
you.
see you,
Father
brother.
Deacon's always wise and balanced, and I know everybody appreciates his takes. I think, you guys were just talking about the outside system, and that's one of the things that's involved in a lot of the literature that's, that uses this sort of dystopian future as its basis. Remember in 1984, there's a whole group of, city dwelling, urban, rat people outside, but they're free, right? They're not in the system. And then in Brave New World, John the Savage lives on the Savage reservation, which is still sort of controlled in a way, but it's also outside of the system. And remember Demolition Man, Dennis Leary and his group of subterranean, post-apocalyptic punks like live underground. It's in Total Recall. There's always the works of art about this always depict an outside system. So I think that's
we talked about. I don't mean to cut you off, but that was where the kind of group discussion we had in our little think tank members meeting was that there has to be an oppositional force. There's not going to be a vacuum where everybody's just sucked into the systems and there's no choice. There's going to have to be an alternative, like you're saying.
Yeah, and this continues to be a theme and a trope in films. This is going to continue. Like the dystopian film, theme has been a thing for a long time, but I think it's going to really ramp up in terms of what movies, for instance, are about. There's a new movie that just came out called Foe on Amazon, which deals with this. There's a space city where everyone's happy and there's sort of utopia. And the people, are people. And it's like, I'm a person and they're going to have a robot come replace me while I go work in the, space pod or whatever. But it turns out, spoiler, oops, I've been a clone all along and the humans up there and they're observing me. And this is in Elysium. It's in all this stuff. And I think that one of the things that is, that draws people to the reason the technocratic system is, seems to be like at least acceptable in people's minds generally is that it has something to offer. Of course, it's not going to offer us anything, but it's going to offer the promise of like health care and, your diseases will be fixed. And, there's weather up there and the rest of the earth is dry and dusty is the way they always depict it. But I think what's coming in this year is going to be, I don't see the hot war ramping up in terms of the global big three thing soon.
Okay.
I'm sure that'll happen, but it's not beneficial to, for instance, in 1984, it's like the three systems on the globe, right? And they're always at war in sort of a proxy war away from our point of view, but it's not beneficial to have an overt, invading land force like the big two, especially with China. China's whole thing, the reason they're successful is that, just a basic, way of looking at them is that we, since World War II, have done overt invasion warfare. We got bases everywhere. And the Chinese figured out in the last 30 years, they can do all that by, roads and bridges and money, and claim to be, they're a communist country, but they're just a single party country with a bunch of billionaires. And it's very successful for them. And our two economies are sort of intertwined in that sense. So until it benefits the elites to, ramp up the total Depop thing, I don't think that's coming within the next year, at least. I think that Karunka and all that is not, there's not going to be a neo Karunka this year. There'll be little spots, but this Middle East stuff and the Houthis and all that. Oh, it's the MIC is making buku bucks again.
Yep.
Getting a lot of exercise time in, with all of our stuff the last 20 years in the Middle East, war games, practice. Cause that's we send an aircraft carrier over there and then we're a target. We draw the target. And then there's, a bunch of military action, more missiles are constructed, more money is spent. There's more power. And it's just kind of an exercise, a war game. That's one aspect of it.
That also these kind of proxy wars is just kind of overall destabilization too. So make money, destabilize, and rise to the top, get more power.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. I mean, I think that the thing with I'll call it the vooding every 4 years is a threat to the system in the sense that, instability when we're unstable in parts of the globe that are not designed, or at least not designed in terms of their papers and what they say they want. That's a threat to them. And then we have other things that sort of counteract that. I think that, for instance, the thing in Eastern Europe is now almost completely wound down, right? They announced today, at least in terms of funding, there's no more funding.
There's no funding.
Yeah, they've done their war games. They've done their thing. They've grabbed what they needed to grab, and that'll, continue to have repercussions in the future. But just one more thing. I've recently been watching this guy who was a Navy SEAL, and then he joined the French Foreign Legion. And I read about this kind of thing a lot. And one of the things that he said that was kind of significant was that the Foreign Legion is made up of 10% Russian-speaking Ukrainians. There's a lot of Ukrainians and Eastern European, non-Russians, but Eastern Europeans in the Foreign Legion. And when the hot action kicks off, they're sort of free to go and do that thing. And he was going to go join them because Foreign Legion, they're involved in the action of war. But I think it's significant because in the end, lives are at stake, and there's territory and there's geopolitical things going on. But to the powers that be, these things continue to function as war games and practice in one aspect. And the number of futuristic weapons gear that's come out just in the past few years is unbelievable. If anybody's seen the CRAM Phalanx gun anti-missile system, it's not new, but that's the sort of thing that's shown on the internet, and people go, "Oh, that's the that's the aliens, that's the Saturn people." When it looks like laser beams, but it's a million shells fired in a second. This sort of cylindrical, the drones, floating, and all sorts of robotic warfare drones and all this stuff. I think that's going to keep ramping up, and a good cover is the alien thing. But I don't know. In the next year, hopefully what'll happen in the next year is this is the year of love. We'll have a big meetup, right? We'll hear some music. We'll chill. People will get married, fall in love, and we'll all live happily ever after. That's what I hope for.
I hope for that as well. We had a super chat directed at Father Deacon. I want to give him the opportunity to respond to it. First one, we have two other ones that came in. First one, $3 came in from DC Woodworking. Thank you very much, DC Woodworking. God bless you, brother. Appreciate the support. And then another one came in on Blue Skittle over on the Dono chat. Again, if you want to throw some support my way, feel free to use the Dono chat or the Streamlabs link. Blue Skittle throws in $5, no comment. Thank you very much, Blue Skittle. And then here is the super chat that came in directed at Father Deacon. He throws in, Circle G throws in $10 and says, Father Deacon, I don't think you appreciate how propagandized this military generation is. I don't think state guard units would stand against federal power if ordered by their respective governor. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've thought about that. That's a good question. Doesn't it seem like there's always the useful idiots though? Like, I mean, let's look at the coup mandates from the military. Like, it was a pretty small percentage that stood up against that. I think the military would be smart. I'm not going to be like, we're going to war at, like, I think they would have to cook up a story and keep certain stuff hidden in order to keep the morale of the troops, that they thought they were actually fighting for something where, you know, you're actually under threat and they're coming. I mean, we see this with the media, right? Biden just released his new campaign video, right?
Yep.
Where it used to be when we were kids, it was the Muslim terrorists were the enemies, right? Now it's the American people.
Right.
And it's amazing. I know some really intelligent people that seem to be fairly decent people, and they really believe that the country is there was an insurrection and the country's under attack. And if you can get close to half the Americans who are fairly decent people to actually think that the other side is your enemy, absolutely, I think you could get the military that, like, they're coming after you and your family. You don't think that they would be like, yeah, we have to fight them.
Right.
So I think it's very easy to do that, especially with control of the media. And then if military, you have complete control of what you hear and learn. And yeah, absolutely, I think.
And in relation to that, taking a different approach, I also look at it as the great separating. So when you talk about the jibby jabs in the military and how many people decided not to get it, we're seeing the collapse in competency around the board in the United States. You could probably say it in the West, but at least in the United States, just your average place you may go for a restaurant or federal workings. And so, yeah, I saw the Democrats put in a proposition that all these illegals become U.S. military soldiers, which is classic to the agenda, is bringing a foreign population to control the domestic population because they have no ethnic allegiance to them or cultural allegiance. But at the same time, it seems like the most competent people, the smartest, sharpest, most aware people aren't falling for it. And so even though it might be a minority in regard to the grand scope of the population, I think that goes a long ways. When I talk to people and they're awake, it's almost always much more competent, successful people, where the people that are still asleep, they may be financially successful one way or another, but they're kind of dupes. They're the useful idiots to some degree. They don't really have larger priorities. They don't have something to fight for, to die for. They don't have larger values. And so I think at the same time,
people in academia or in look, if you're ambitious, and Noam Chomsky talked about this too. Roger Scruton talked about this. But when you're in the machine, when you play the game, you're rewarded. Right. So the more that you play it. And so for those people who are ambitious and want to climb politically in the corporate world or in the academic world, you're rewarded. Those people might actually be really intelligent, but do you see they're blinded by their kind of ambition and pride? Right. That why do they believe in all this stuff? Some of these people are decent people and they are smart. And I would say because they're rewarded, they really want to climb up And I think that's something important.
Well, that ties into actually a stream I want to do. The general context is sort of the collapse of meritocracy in the United States and how the system in return has structured it so that it's about compliance. And that's the way in which people compete. And so you compete within these hierarchies if you have ambition. Yeah. The way you compete is how compliant you are to the system that is, because everybody's aware, whether it's subconscious or explicitly conscious of, that if you step out of line, you're going to probably lose your income, or you're going to lose the status you've acquired, or you're going to lose your job title. And so this collapse of meritocracy has brought, and this is why you see, you know, some of the least competent people getting promoted, some of the least competent people, they can compete with the most competent people through their allegiance to the narrative and their acquiescence to the demands.
Hey, I think we should also do a stream on Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky's really good. Look, he's a gatekeeper. He's part of but he tells the truth. You know, he's been quite involved in providing a philosophical institutional analysis of propaganda. And I think it's really important this time and day and age to review that. How does propaganda, how do these structures actually work? How is it disseminated? Because it's absolutely amazing. Never in history have we got to a point in time where propaganda is so thoroughly perfected.
Yeah.
Here's what I noticed the other day. You can literally take the evidence and facts and put it up in front of somebody's face and they don't see it.
Right.
And be like, here it is from your own news networks, and as if you're holding up nothing.
Right.
If that's possible, think about how thorough the propaganda actually must be. So not only to deny it, but not even to see it, that it's not even on the radar. They don't even have the conceptual framework to actually even see that there's another argument or something being said to the opposite. It's not even there.
Well, Father Deacon, they always talk about, you know, drawing a line in the sand, right? That's their expression. And what I think is interesting is that this whole thing, you know, especially over the past few years, has shown that people are willing to like make little compromises, little, you know, concessions. It's like, oh, I don't want to lose that, you know, cruise, or my, you know, that little bit of my 401k, or I want to go see my friends, you know, on the plane, or go see fish, or, you know, these little things where the little things show these cracks that end up being huge. And people, generally speaking, want normality, right? They want, you know, they don't want any trouble. They don't want, you know, they don't want to be messed with. But this whole thing gave like the cockroach people power, in the sense that like the dude who makes slushies at the corner store now has the ability to like tell you to do something or not do something, and you better listen because he's seen you before and knows where you work. Right. Now we're kind of, now that thing is, we know that so much that it's been years, and now we're like well into that, and it's sort of, you know, faded away. But the whole thing showed that that's certainly possible. And the next time anyone has a reason to, you know, shut the entire world down, they can do it very easily. Like people will just do that. So I think that, I don't know, that was my take. Sorry.
No, I think that's a great
Father Dick was
point.
making great points.
It's a great point, but you see, that's kind of get into the destruction of meritocracy is allowed anybody to be a sort of an enforcer of the narrative, right?
Yeah.
Which gives them leverage and power, and it has nothing to do with competency and any requisite skill or ability. It's about compliance, and that is the new meritocracy.
Who was there was a writer who said that, you know, America is a great example of like a major portion of the population has a job that doesn't actually serve a function or do anything. It's, you know, part of this gigantic bureaucratic organism. And I think this thing has shown that there are so many people who don't actually do anything or like create anything or make anything, that number one, they don't want to swim against stream. They don't want to, you know, they don't want to challenge themselves in any way. If they do, they're going to follow whatever they're told anywhere. their sense of virtue comes from essentially what they're told, and a good person. That's always the argument. Well, they're a good person, right? How could this happen to a good person? Well, what does that mean, right? What sort of paradigm are you talking about? The good person who, they were good because they did what they're told and they got their stabby or whatever. Is that the good person? And I think that there are so many people that lack any sort of purpose that this is just going to continue into the like with the thing in with the voting. Yeah, I don't think that there's, like Father Deacon was saying, they don't want this guy to win, obviously, but they also don't want they don't want destabilization. So the guy that's there now, pumped up with Drino, and just goes out. It's like, who cares? And people don't really care in general out there. They just want to hear him talking, do the message. The prices go up on everything. Everything sucks everywhere. But people don't really, out there don't really care very much. It's like, oh, it'll get better or not, whatever.
Right.
I actually would like to add something to what Father Deacon said about propaganda and normalization, which, Bezmenov spoke about this way back in the 80s. And right now, for example, in Italy, we've had this big wave of feminism. I don't know if you guys have seen anything about it, because there's been this whole talk about domestic violence and women getting killed. And basically, the feminists have actually changed the language. Where now a homicide, a domestic homicide where a woman is killed, it has become a feminicide. So they changed that language, and they basically inflated the statistics, and they've been, propagating more and more through the media and the politicians as well. This, the hateful, language where all men are bad. They're all part of the problem, and make it seem like we're the worst country in Europe in this regard, where it's actually the opposite, one of the better ones. But yeah, and in regards to that whole thing in America, I saw an interview. A research where they were saying that they interviewed a whole bunch of people. They took a sample of population, and there was the question was, would you agree to put cameras in your home, government cameras, to prevent domestic violence? And 29% of Gen Z said yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this is I don't remember now the author of the research. It was like an institute, but yeah, you can go and look it up. You can go and research, cameras. Research the cameras.
I say we should really protect domestic violence while we can. Like, it's our time to make our stand in favor of domestic violence. And I'm half joking only, because I honestly believe we don't understand as modern people how much the state has encroached into our ability to, let's say, even discipline our children. If we ever use physical discipline, we could risk going to jail. So that's a radical transformation. In Russia, at least, I don't know how many years back, maybe it's still legal, but men were allowed to legally beat their wives. I'm not suggesting that you should do it, but it was legal. So I think that there's been a radical transformation. In a way, I don't know, maybe Father Deacon Dr. Ananias might correct me, but there are lots of places in the Bible where the scripture says, beat your child, the rod won't kill him, and you might I should look it up. I'm sorry, English is not my first language, but the idea is that if you physically discipline your child, and this is, I think, from, I don't know if Proverbs, but if you use the rod, you might save your child's life. So basically, we don't have the authority nowadays to be authorities within our own homes, because the state is going to tell us how we should rule within our own homes. And I think it's got to do with the same philosophy of the Enlightenment that makes everything into something that can be argued. Like I'm a journalist, so I just sent a piece I was working on for a right-wing journal, and it was basically that we're being cucked because the philosophy of modernity basically says that we have to submit and have a dialogue with any kind of idiot that wants to like debate us. But if my interpretation of scripture is that, maybe not my interpretation, but like my understanding of it is that if your son feels like they can question whatever you say, they're not your son, they're actually an enemy that is living within your home. So the same applies to your wife. If your wife does not respect your authority, like if she believes that she can question everything you say, then she's not your wife. She believes like she's your equal. And I'd say that that's something that we have to like shed a light on, because not everything is up for debate. Like sometimes, like if you rule your own country and another ruler doesn't like you, he can go suck on a lemon. Like, why should you care? Like, why should everything be up for discussion by a committee? That's let's say egalitarianism at the intellectual level. So I think that we should like say, okay, I don't care, you don't have the authority to question me, so move along. That's it, end of the discussion. And I think us as modern Westerners, we're still stuck on trying to defend our arguments against others when the other doesn't even have the authority to enter into the debate. It's like, no, we are not equals. Like, if you're in a position of authority, you might simply say, look, this is my role. I don't know. Let's say, imagine I was a politician. Why should we're starting to see like journalists ask politicians, like, why don't you answer me in the exact precise way I want you to answer and acquiesce to my demands of power? It's like, oh, you don't believe in the equality of the sexes? Oh, you don't believe in... No, I don't. Why should I? Like, why do you feel like you are that you have the right to expect me to answer in a way that you want me to? Like, we're not equals, but democracy requires that you do. I don't know. I'm sorry, I went on a long rant, but
yeah, I'll let Father Deacon respond, but I think the verse you were talking about was Proverbs 13:24. Whoever spares the rod hates their children, but the one who loves their children is careful to discipline them. And I just want to point, we are the beginning of your comment. We certainly do not promote domestic abuse or abuse in any sense, but if the general point was the authority of a man to have discipline within his home, we would support that.
The rod and thy staff, they comfort me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would
I
say.
actually had a debate about this. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I just had a debate about this with an atheist who just jumped into a comment section on Instagram saying, oh, your Bible says that, you have to beat your children. And I'm like, kinda. Like sometimes some physical discipline. I've been physically disciplined by my father a few times. His father used the belt. Like, none of us turned violent. None of us have been beating our partners or anything. It's like, I'm not saying it's always necessary. It depends from case to case. But, there are times when, a slap in the face will actually bring that message across to a child. I'm not saying to do it to your wife, but like, I think that there is a case where just the physical force is just frowned upon, like, without any consideration. And I think this is like generally a problem that we have in our society, that we don't really we don't look at context, we always try to sort of flatten everything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in a larger sense, people even having children is going to be the problem. It's already a problem now and in the future, and anything that the state can use to crush you in that sense, they'll use. I know it's It's apparently it's a felony to destroy property in the process of a domestic dispute and argument in New York. I don't know about anywhere else, but you know, it's everything is totally against you, and everything is supposed to is sort of designed already to break up family units, and that's going to continue to be one of the big things. So
that's why they introduced feminism. It broke up and divided the family, and it's always this demonic sales pitch of freedom, right? That well, you should be free to. Don't you want to be free to get your own job and work? And it's a total trap, because then what that did is it created artificially inflated everything, so that now you have to have a 2-income family, and who raises the children but the state and other nannies and different stuff like this. So there's just no kind of cohesion in the kind of family. And I think, Ivan, you're correct too, that this idea that everybody has an opinion that's equally valid, and dialogue and discussion and debate is a Trojan horse. We're long past the days of actual debate. So these people use these things, right? With the open university, and we should be debating these things, and we should have a discussion. These people don't believe in debate and discussion and truth. It's a Trojan horse to actually use. I mean, it's just weaponized words again. And that's one of the things I saw at the recent debate here that we had between the conservative never Trumper and the philosophy professor that was saying Christian could and probably should vote for Trump. Is we got all the Q&As were great until the very end, and we got 2 fanatic liberals, and they called out, you know, about the abortion stuff. Well, you could just see the anger and hatred on these people's faces, which right there is a good sign. It's like, if your philosophy, religion, or ideology is causing you to be miserable and hateful and changing your physiognomy, like, it's wrong just on those grounds, right?
Yeah.
And so she comes up, and I actually walked away. I had to ask him later, like, what did she say? And it said, and I'm glad I walked away, because I don't know what I would have said. She said, because he was saying, look, we don't have an idea that we promote choice for choice sake in a vacuum, in an abstract. It's a choice about certain things, and never a choice for murder. She says, you can't say that because you're a white male. And I was like, I've been upset ever since I heard. I'm like, do you see there is no... She came under the pretense of actually having a discussion and dialogue. That phrase is a fighting phrase. That means there is no dialogues. We're not friends.
Right.
So it's all power, right? So I agree with you too, that I'm like, absolutely not. Like, why dialogue? These people they want power. They will use whatever words and anything against you. And that's what's really sad. That's why I think we're beyond the point of return, is how can we, given the situation that we're in, have dialogue with the other side anymore? It's all power struggles, which is why libertarianism is so stupid, right?
Right.
Like, libertarianism has nothing to offer to curtail vice and absolute destruction of the individual, society, and family.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's like, I'm just playing things and examples of where both governments and families would be like, no, there's no dialogue on this. Some things are so harmful that you don't need to discuss. Like, just be like, this is the law, this is the rules, and there's end of discussion. So in principle, I agree with that. I think that's correct.
I want to give a shout out to Pim Orsos. He just gifted 5 COTEL Crew memberships. Welcome, More, Belinda, Derek or Daniel Flores, Benjamin, G Money, and Stephen Young to the COTEL Crew. Thank you so much, Pim, for that generous gifting of 5 COTEL Crew super chats. And then we had 2 other super chats $2 came in from Circle G. He was the one that had a question for Father Deacon. He said, wish I could call in, but I'm on toddler duty. Well, God bless you and your family, Circle G. Appreciate the support. And then Felipe threw in 2790 of our currency. I'm not exactly sure which one that went in. He says, how does Kabbalah relate to geopolitics and ethnic cleansing, and why Dugan is involved in all of this?
That's actually an interesting question. Well, can I just add something to this question? The Hegel, because we mentioned him before, he was heavy into Kabbalah and in these kind of systems, and that's where he derived this whole left and right thing. That's where it all comes from, actually.
Yeah, well, in regards to Kabbalah, I would refer back to the stream I just did on French Masonry, communism. The entrance of Kabbalah into Europe comes through the Zohar and the Iberian Peninsula in the 13th century. It's a mystical Jewish interpretation of which, again, that for that text is the Zohar. And I think all esoteric spirituality, all magical occultism is all operating with the same spirits at play. And so you can point to one particular tradition. Certainly, I think that is credible. But there's multiple levers which lead people to contributing to the same exact problem. And so just, again, not wanting to get too deep into something that could violate TOS or anything like that. We'll leave it there. In regards to why Dugan is involved in all of this, I think that's interesting because I assume Felipe is then coming from an Orthodox perspective because Alexander Dugan is quite popular in regards to Russian nationalism and stuff like that. I have seen multiple claims. I'm not super into Dugan or what exactly he's promoting, but I know that he is involved in some of these more esoteric forms of spirituality, and his devotion to orthodoxy seems to be quite a question many Orthodox people have levied at him. So I personally do not see him as somebody on the exact same side that everybody on this panel would be arguing from, because we're coming from a God-based Trinitarian-centric worldview. And so I think maybe he doesn't worship the same God that we do, and that would be why the left and right is really contributing to the same thing, whether it be the radical left or the right-wing ethno-nationalists, where they don't have anything transcendent, and so they rally around their ethnic identity, leading, again, to a false dialectic that puts everybody in between into, again, the problem, reaction, solution. So I'll leave that there. If anybody, you guys want to add something to that, feel free.
Let me put it simply, folks. We live in a prison planet, and I'm trying to get from Kether to Malkuth, all right? Just like David Bowie said, there are a bunch of NPCs out there. They've got human-animal chimeras gestating on U.S. research farms. The sky those aren't stars. Those are pinpricks in a fabric. We're trying to get through Hyperborean ice walls to the other side because our pale reason hides the infinite from us. And Alan Moore and Dugan are obviously wizard mages, and we're trying to follow them into the gnome world. Does that answer your question?
That pretty much answers it all right there.
Perfect analysis. Yeah. They're interesting characters. I almost kind of view Vugan. I almost said Voodoo Dugan. By the way, I kid you not, there's an Irish cream at the local liquor store called Dugan, and I get it every single time.
But is it a Protestant Dugan, or is it a Catholic Dugan? Sorry, that's what I want to know. Is it a Protestant Dugan or a Catholic Dugan?
Yeah, have you heard this one? I'm gonna tell you a little joke just to break things up a little bit. So
please do.
It's during the time of the struggles, right? And it's dark alleyway up in Belfast. And guy comes up and he puts a gun to the guy who runs into the alleyway. Catholic or Protestant? Guy puts up his hands and says, atheist. Yes, but Catholic atheist or Protestant atheist?
That's what happened when I was there after the Big Nine. It was there was a political cartoon in the paper in the Belfast Guardian, and it was a bunch of fellas sitting around, and there was a little fella there with the thing on his head and a bomb strapped to his chest, and he said that he was of that particular faith in the Middle East. And they said, right, but are you Catholic or are you Protestant, Muslim? Which one is it? We know about the bombs here, fella.
I forgot you were in Ireland too. Were we in Ireland at the same time?
I was there from 2000 to 2002, and then I went back for grad school in 2005 to 6. And you were right down the way in Dublin, weren't you?
Yeah, well, I was in 2005, 2006.
Right. I was right up the road. I was there at Queen's for grad school there in Belfast.
My external advisor was from Queens.
You mentioned that before. Now the new chancellor of Queen's is Hillary Clinton. She's the new chancellor.
Oh, the Irish love. Do you remember?
They do.
And that's something worth looking into. The Clintons. We had a UCD.
Clinton is from Fermanagh. He's from Fermanagh, County Fermanagh. He's an Ulster Scots from there.
And there was a lot of
times
funding and stuff going on too, so that's kind of interesting too. We had a Clinton Institute at UCD, and so anyways, not to go off topic. I thought you were going to say they have Chat GPT is the new president.
Looks like in the chat, the opinions on Dugan are divided. Orthodox Centurion says Dugan appeared to be an occult syncretist. Could be wrong. That was what I've seen some clips, and again, I don't follow him very closely, so could be. Other people said that in current interviews, he changed his views on faith and God that he once had. Well, good for him. Glory to God if he did. And then
I just don't know.
You really don't know about Dugan. Shame on you. Yes, shame on me. Shame.
Well, they did. I mean, they did. Unalive his daughter last year, 2 years ago.
Yep, they definitely did that.
Yeah, and he was sort of silent for a long time, and then all this stuff is kicked up, and he's sort of. I know he's back on. I'm not on Twitter, but I know he's back on Twitter, and I know that his even on the cover of his book, he was into chaos magic and sort of mentions Crowley, and that's one of the sigils on the cover of his book. But I think that what he's talked about at least recently has this sort of air of what Basmanov was talking about all those years ago, and it's how the United States and the Soviet Union of the I guess the height of the Cold War have sort of flipped, and now all of the decadence is obviously here, and that's been the sort of gist of a bunch of his written work on Twitter. But that's I'm not a scholar of Dugan, so
yeah.
He's like an Elon Musk. Like he's one of those guys that it's like I don't completely trust, but I find really interesting and watching. I kind of like to see how it plays out, kind of thing.
Yeah, he said multiple things I agree with. So it wasn't like I was trying to chastise Alexander Dugan and everything he says. I mean, same thing with Elon Musk. I mean, I don't trust him at all, but he does things. Again, he's shifted the Overton window. I think aspects of X are beneficial. I'm not a fan of what I suspect Starlink's going to be. I'm not a fan of the Everything app with a big X on it. And
you and I talked about his family's part of can't remember the name of it, but like supporting technocracy and
yes, exactly.
Remember
I did a stream exactly. His grandfather on his mother's side he was one of the presidents or something of the technocrats of the world or something association, something like that. I'm paraphrasing, getting it wrong, but it's something to that degree. And who knows? Other people have claimed that Elon is changing hearts. I saw somebody who just did some type of a testimony for some lawsuit, claims that she was with him in some Luciferian ritual or something, and that he was presented with the video of her evidence that she submitted, and he broke down in tears and is trying to fight against what he was a part of before. I don't know. I don't know the heart of these people. That's why I just follow orthodoxy. That's Christ is the only guiding light.
Interesting, the tears aspect. I would think he would be one of those guys who, is incapable. He has synthetic tears. Right? He has a tear machine. There is one person who knows about Dugan, and that's somebody that we know who did an interview, who did
That's true.
two streams with Dugan a long time ago, for which he caught a lot of flack.
A lot of flack. Yeah, apparently he's a KGB agent because of it.
Right.
But,
Yes.
and I'll be with that.
His life has been ruined ever since.
Yeah, I'll be with that KGB agent tonight talking about remote viewing and some of the projects such as the Stargate project with the federal government using these sort of remote viewing, astral projection for
Ingo Swann.
gathering.
Ingo Swann and the
exactly.
astral projection. Yeah.
So I'll be on with Jay tonight on his channel to talk a little
New
bit about
Hadron Collider coming up too.
Yeah.
Dude, you're gonna be
times.
People are elves too. Yeah, you're gonna be
DPH.
the Keebler elves riding a flamingo or any of that.
That's the clock. It's the clock. Yeah, it's the clockwork elves are not as cool as Keebler elves, but no. But DPH, have you seen the documentary on the astral projection? The Stanford research. There's a great one. It's called Psychic Spies.
Oh, let me look that up.
It's a pretty good documentary on Ingo Swann and those guys.
Let me look that up. I may have to watch it before the stream tonight.
Yeah, it's got some interesting details. Yeah.
Was it actually? There's a whole community. I've discovered there's a whole community of shifters on TikTok, which is a bunch of Gen Z guys who are convinced that they can shift between different dimensions using their mind.
Yes.
Well, and that's where I talked about from an Orthodox perspective, the theology behind remote viewing and stuff. It makes sense, but it's a tethering or a disentanglement of the noetic faculties with the body, which again, we are incarnational. We believe that the body is something sacred. And so these people going into the noetic realm, and again, and I showed all the evidence of multiple people, how they contact these ethereal entities and they give them insights into things, and the U.S. government has been using this. Well, that kind of makes sense from an Orthodox worldview. That totally makes sense. I believe that some of these powers are actually accessible, and it makes sense with, again, theories regarding witchcraft and all this different stuff. But
hey, Patrick, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because it just made me think about this, or any of you guys. So I was doing some tutoring last night, and I forget exactly how it came up, but I was explaining George Barclay's what idealism is. Now, and then I just realized something very interesting. Both in science, especially in the like quantum science, and then philosophy of mind, idealism's been kind of resurrected, and is this huge, it's hugely popular right now, and I'd like to see why that actually is the case and its connections to some of this stuff. I mean, if you think about like astral projection, well, if everything's mind, right? If it's whether in philosophy of mind, this kind of panpsychism or stronger degrees of idealism, there's tons of physicists now that it's just like it's all ideas. How this kind of astral projection and these different things and communication works, and if you know anything about those kind of connections and what's going on.
Yeah, well, I totally think they're interrelated, and idealism is the way in which the evil one gets people to fall into these false utopias, because whether it be communism, whether it be the promises of some of these esoteric spiritualities, whether it be transhumanism, the whole idea is we're going to eradicate that which is negative this side of eternity, and therefore, let's join ourselves. And so this perfect idealism, the idea that we can construct these worldviews and implement them. And I think that transhumanism is moving people to a sort of disentanglement with their body and view the body as something that's lesser than, and something that needs to get rid of, and something that needs to be augmented and elevated to a higher state. And you and me have talked privately about the sort of electronic realm.
That never happened. We never had that concept.
Yeah. But it's like the inversion of the news. And so that all the electronics is going to be the place of the demons, because they are the spirits of the air. The signals, the Wi-Fi signals, the electronic signals, it's all in the air. and this is a way
And
in
I-
which they sort of inhabit the new noosphere.
And also talk about because you're really good, you know, the Eastern perspective too has a kind of idealism, right? So that and Eastern mystic religions and Buddhism and Hinduism has been brought up and is now in vogue in both philosophy of mind and science too. I mean, think about like the wave collapse and stuff, but that your mind is actually causing reality,
Right.
which
Well,
is
that-
idealism again.
That was the question I was going to pose. Do you think that idealism is incompatible with Orthodox Christianity? And would you say idealism is a form of realism in the sense that it grounds ontology into ideas? Like, where's the
Sorry.
dividing line?
Well, I think it is completely incompatible with orthodoxy because we're told God created a distinct material world that's distinct from his kind of idea. So it's not simply, and I think ultimately idealism would lead to something kind of like an eternal world or something like that, right? Because if God is, you know, eternal and has these eternal ideas, then there's nothing within the idea to distinguish between the idea of the thing and the thing itself. And so you get two things. I think you collapse into kind of a monism, and also pantheism. That it makes it very difficult to distinguish the creator from the creation if everything's just ideas, right? Now we'll talk about in causal powers or something like that, but that ultimately just kind of collapses. And so, yeah, I think it's totally antithetical to Christianity.
To Orthodox, because I'd say that Catholics are idealists, basically. They're monists and they're Neoplatonists. I'd say, well, at least my understanding of Catholic theology is basically Neoplatonism with Christianity as a thin veneer of
and this was brought up in the tutoring session yesterday, that because I said, well, it sounds like Plato and the Neoplatonists. I'm like, yeah, it's different. They're dualists though. Like, I definitely wouldn't say they're monists. That there are kind of two worlds, even though the kind of material world is not a real world. It's kind of like a shadow. It has no causal efficacy or something like that. They still have a type of dualism, right? They're separated. Idealism would collapse it into a monism.
Now I understand.
Hey, Father Deacon, just curious, wasn't Augustine partially kind of infected with this, with Neoplatonism because of his whole trying to philosophize the theology?
Yeah, and I would say he never, also Manichaeanism. He never...
Yeah. There's been a hot debate on X recently in the ortho world.
Yeah. And by the way, I love Augustine. Nobody loves Augustine as much as me. I even made my wedding cake into St. Augustine's Confessions. So that's how nerdy I am. But I have my criticism. Do you see me? Like, I love him as a saint, but I know where to spot, here's where his philosophical and theological problems are.
Well, yeah, it was, I had, as a penance, I don't know if you've read this little book called Acquiring the Mind of Christ, and it's written by, I guess, Archimandrite, however you pronounce it, Sergius of St. Tikhon's monastery, and there was
I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, there's a chapter in there that went into how apparently Augustine was like a Neoplatonist who became a devout Christian, but then St. Maximos starts going over, he basically tried to logically figure out the faith or something along those lines instead of letting it be revealed. And then if only he knew Greek, if you could just take back a time machine and just, hey, dude, just hear me out. It's in Greek, and I'm going to help you learn it. Just how many problems, boom, would that fix?
Mm-hmm.
Father Deacon and Jay have done many streams on St. Augustine. Voluminous archive of streams on Augustine that are all great and answer many of those questions. Father Deacon, are you a fan of Val Kilmer's movie The Saint?
Yeah.
Do you remember seeing that? Remember each of his names is a different saint, and when he's St. Augustine, he's on the plane and he says, "Give me constancy and give me chastity, but do not give them to me yet."
Yeah. That's a great line from Augustine. Has some great one-liners.
I just sent you the name of the documentary.
Yeah, I got that. For anybody interested, it's the Third Eye Spies documentary. I'm gonna watch that before my stream with Jay tonight.
Yeah, it's mainly about this guy Ingo Swann, and it's got Uri Geller and the spoon bending, but it's pretty interesting in terms of astral projection. And actually, Father Deacon and Jay had a really great take about the whole thing years ago, summed up in the fact that like when starseed people want to astral project and go out into the cosmos and be outside of their bodies, the main problem, the immediate trouble is that when you're outside of your body, you're opening yourself up for something else to inhabit it. I remember you guys mentioning that. Tristan's mentioned it a bunch of times. That's one of the main problems of people going to down to South America and doing ayahuasca, shaman ceremonies, is that they're opening themselves up to demonic entities in possession, and astral projection, as co-opted by the CIA with their experiments and tests, seems
Talking to goats, yeah.
Yeah, it seems to even recognize these things as part of it. That was one of the MK Ultra programs. They contacted Sybil Leek, that witch, who sort of instructed them on this. Early OSS, talked about Blavatsky and Crowley and this kind of activity in general. So it's obviously.
And I think that Patrick, you've talked about it, but the use of psychedelics was really important in that too. I remember my early years, and I could totally see how that's. I mean, what is that one thing that everybody would say? But like, your animals immediately news, like when you're on psychedelics, like, and not only your animal, like other animals. That was the first thing, and I'm like, something's going on that's opening you beyond your normal. The other thing too was you would get feelings, and they could be delusions, but the fact of the matter is you seem to be perceiving it. What telekinesis, right? We're sharing the same thoughts, like, and I'm able to, and I was able to do this when I was younger.
Yeah, it's
communicate with like friends without saying anything. Now, it's very possible I'm just totally out of my mind, and like I thought I was communicating, wasn't. But the fact of the matter is, later you would have a conversation sober and it'd be like, yeah, I know exactly what you were saying.
Yep, happened with me and my friends too.
And then also developing the idea of being able to have thoughts beyond your physical kind of locale and be. So I would certainly think that if just experiencing that the CIA and MK Ultra experiments, and just the kind of occultic religions and esoteric religions would use that, as far as like, of course you could astral project, like, of course. Now, what's probably happening, I think, if I had to give a theological take, is you're communicating with the thoughts of demons in different spaces. You've opened yourself up to the noetic realm. Because think about it, like, how do people know future events and different things, and things happen in the world who are saints, right? Well, they've acquired a mind of God, right?
But it's always embodied. I had somebody argue with me after my astral projection stream. They're like, "Oh, we, all these saints and Saint Porphyrios and Saint Paisios, they knew the sins of people." And I said, "Yeah, but they're all awake looking at the person in their body, and those gifts were gifted to them through the spirit. That's very
Yes.
different than astral projection, where you use binaural beats, you use the hemisync method, and you go into altered states of consciousness, disassociate with your body, and contact entities and move around the planet to gain information. That's totally different.
Yeah. So what I think's going on is they're acquiring, they're becoming mentally possessed by demonic spirits, and they're seeing things from wherever they actually might be. Like, I definitely think that's possible. Also, yeah, it was just kind of cool revisiting Indiana Jones and the skull. What's the
Temple of Doom,
the
Crystal
The
Skull.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah. That's why we have BLA around, man. You can't get anything past him.
I mean, it's obviously like what was cool about that, and I knew when it came out too that like obviously they made a specific points. They weren't aliens. They were interdimensional beings. He said the space between spaces, right?
Yeah, watchers. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very clear when you watch it, like they're demonic. Now, what I thought was interesting too, they operate in a hive mind, which is also. Do you remember they pointed that out too?
We're all one, man.
Yeah. Well, and they want you to take
watch it again. You'll pick up on a lot of stuff.
Right. Well, that's part of that disembodiment. Is that part of the psychedelic spirituality? Is like me being David Patrick Harry is actually an illusion of the ego, which I need to transcend through these numinous experiences to realize there's only one planetary consciousness, and I need to align with that. Well, to me, as an Orthodox Christian, that makes perfect sense with a union with the demonic and union with the evil one, because that's what he wants.
And you
Christ is in our name, in our person.
What do you think is significant to crystal too? Did you notice the esoteric crystal and the new age stuff that was used in too? What would you say about that?
Jamie and I are about to do a stream on that in the near future on Dan Brown's The Lost Symbol, which it's an unintentionally funny book, but deals with all of that. That's one of the main points of the book. And one of the things is that the monks always experience this through prayer and devotion to God and privation, for God in terms of their in terms of eating and, fasting. Whereas other people, like for instance, poets, get this way through a degradation of their body and their spirit, and they want to experience, like with Rimbaud in his poem, A Season in Hell, they want to experience everything. He says, I've drunk a monstrous dose of poison. They want to take every drug.
Bukowski. Look at Bukowski.
Right. And experience everything so that they will, it's like a Gnostic shortcut to this sort of thing.
Yeah. That's a great point.
Yeah, it's a really good point. What are your thoughts about Dan? Oh, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, sorry. Not to mention sort of this whole thing, in astral projection, a lot of the people say that they see like a silver tether that sort of connects the body to the like an umbilical cord.
Right.
And there's this thing where they say the entities are sort of all around them, and some of them are like manifestly negative. And there's also this talk of the risk of not being able to go back, right? Which is a thing also in fairy mythology and UFO mythology, even though they don't realize it, when they offer a drink, when they offer something to eat, which is a way to sort of connect to that world. And this is witchcraft initiation 101. And I know because I personally met witches, like not Wiccans, like actual witches from ancient Slavic traditions, and this runs in the family because usually these entities attach themselves to a family once that tradition is going.
Yep.
And they start very early on, since they're like 3 years old, they start having these dreams. These demons come up to them, they start to sort of entice them more and more, and then the initiation happens in the dream, but it's not a normal dream. It's like, Father Deacon said, it's the noetic space. It's this more real than real dream that people have. And I'm sure that David, with all the experiences that you had with DMT, I think that you sort of know what I'm talking about, because DMT also has that more real than real thing, and all these epiphanies and all these rabbit holes and these entities, which they're the same thing. The UFOs, they're all the same thing. like in the end, it's demons all the way down.
Yeah,
I want
exactly.
to know about this umbilical cord. Is that the Donnie Darko umbilical cord?
Have you ever seen a portal?
I was just thinking about
I
it.
think Donnie Darko references that stuff.
Are you
And
talking
he
about
has
the
to
opening
protect,
of
right?
the portal that shows your sort of fatalistic path, like when he's dissociating? And like it's also in the abyss. Yeah.
But that has been described multiple times about this sort of tethering to the body in these astral projectors. What I also think is when you go into that noetic space, could be on psychedelics, is by emptying the vessel, the body itself, with the noose, it's another entity can get inside of it. And so while they're astral projecting, while they're encountering these entities, they don't know, as Father Deacon said, what they're bringing back with them or what's already in their body. This was something that Stephen Bancars, he's a Protestant, but he was big in the whole psychedelic spiritual world, and he's kind of built a following trying to expose a lot of that stuff. But he was into the astral projection side of stuff. I never really got into that. But he talked about how an entity tried to attach to him, and when he came back to his body, he had like this demonic encounter and sleep paralysis and all this different stuff that eventually only prayer through Jesus Christ eventually it went away for him. So
I think
Actually, there's a
there's
document.
two ways
throw
that
this
people
in.
they get to the point where they freak out and break in this sense. One is when they start to focus, when they're sort of outside themselves. There's the we're all one thing, and then they start to question who they are and their identity. And that's often a thing. Like with psychedelics, it's like you start to picture yourself what you look like from another person's point of view, and then you have an identity crisis. And the other is seeing faces of spirits that people always want to be benign, benevolent spirits, but there's obviously a deep-seated feeling, usually combined with like auditory things, that this is not a friendly thing. You're seeing a face of something you don't want to see, and that's like the point of breaking down for this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
David,
Mike, let me say
Yeah,
this. I want to ask something to the panel, because I'm very against psychedelics, but actually the way I decided to become an Orthodox Christian was during a psychedelic trip, because I saw Jesus. I don't know, like from the fruits, I would say it was him, but I cannot, like monks wouldn't ever say, like affirm, like I've had this experience and such. But I don't know. I think God can meet you there if you're looking for him. I was already like very into, like I was researching Christianity very seriously, and I already believed in it somewhat, but I didn't have, like, let's say, the courage to basically change my life, basically. And I went on a trip with some friends, and they were all in the psychedelic sphere, and I started seeing a lot of demonic stuff going on, and that was the moment I decided, no, this shit doesn't fly. So and I was tripping, and I went out of the house that we were in, and I started to look for the center of the city, like, and it was like a one of these places where people go for holidays. So it's not like a real city; it's a beach city, and so the basically the roads all lead to the same place in a sense. It's made for idiots, perhaps. So I was searching for the center of the city, and I was thinking in my head, and it wasn't really prayer, but I was thinking about my own sins and such, and longing for love and for transcendence. And Christ appeared to me on a cross, and he said something along the lines of, like, do you actually know what I did for you? Like, do you really understand? Like, he appeared on the cross, and like I broke down crying, and then I decided, and I got the feeling that, like, I had to quit that shit. Like, I would never do drugs again, and like I had to get on the straight path. But it's something that I would never like affirm, yes, this was Christ. Like in my heart of hearts, I believe so. But who am I to say? Maybe it was a demon. I don't know.
Right. Well, I've said the same about, and I don't want to recount the whole story, but the last time I did psychedelics was an ayahuasca ceremony. and they stopped working, which had never happened before. And it was after basically what I thought to be a message of to follow Christ. He's a carpenter. It was time for me to build. And that's what led to this entire YouTube channel. Actually, that's why I built Church of the Eternal Logos. I've never done that stuff again because it was quite apparent I didn't need to do it. And then they stopped working. And I remember trying to take more ayahuasca and it just never worked even the next night. So that was a clear message to me from God to stop that path. But he met me where I needed to be, or where I was rather, not that I needed to be there, but he met me where I was to stop that path and turn around and choose another path. So,
well, I saw fish covering Terrapin Station, man. It was the anniversary of Jerry's death, and there was lightning in the distance, and the stars were forming pyramids right over me, man. It was crazy, but I ended up seeing, it was something far worse in the end. That shit is, I don't know.
Yeah.
You do that in your youth, I suppose.
Yeah.
Never do it now.
David, do you think that there's a spiritual component? It's in the movie, the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but do you think there's kind of like an indirect message to where the interdimensional being like pours into the Ukrainian villainess when she's like saying, I want to know? Is that sort of like I guess an anti-transhumanist, if you think about it? Like, if you want to play God, you will literally not be able to take it. You will blow up. Like,
well, I think that idea
like
of wanting to know is actually a sort of Gnostic sentiment that the serpent gave to Eve. So I think that's the same spiritual trajectory, which is self-destructive. So whether, because me and BLA, we actually did a movie review of Indiana Jones. So check that out. If you guys haven't seen it, check out all my streams with BLA. They're fantastic. But we talked a little bit about that because the guy was wearing some unusual garb, we'll put it that way, during that scene. But I think it's ultimately self-destructive, right? The serpent wants to get you to want to know and want to get you outside the confines of being made in the image of God and living your life correctly. And that always is self-destructive. So I think the transhumanist project is entirely self-destructive. But again, I think it's ultimately demonic. And that's the point of it, is to create a new entity in which the demons control it. And it's no longer fully biological under the aegis of God. Not that God couldn't help somebody who gets their brain chip, but certainly they're willfully moving away from him.
That's a consistent theme throughout Indiana Jones, by the way. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, how crazy would it be if that's ultimately, suppose we actually live to see the age of Antichrist, and the way that Christ ends up defeating him is that he comes down and just pours his divine energy into the Antichrist's head, like, you dare want to call yourself divine? And then has him like blow up from the inside, like short circuit, since you had that idea of him being like part machine. I'm going crazy, guys.
No, I pictured a Conan the Barbarian comic book, like with the whole 80s, dark fantasy aesthetic. I think you should paint it, man.
Oh, just like Christ grabbing the Antichrist by the neck and like lifting him off of his feet, like, oh no.
BLA, you're correct. That's the whole theme of Indiana Jones. The knowledge destroys and actually kills her. And then I was thinking about how many different kind of themes where, first of all, a lot of, Crowley goes crazy and loses his mind. I don't know what Nietzsche was into. He lost his mind.
Syphilis.
He gave himself syphilis, yeah.
Well, Crowley made that other guy, Mathers, lose his mind. They did the ceremony after he found the Horus statue, and then went to the desert. He did the thing, gave him peyote. They were, and he stepped outside the magic. So he knew it would happen to him. So he gave it to the other guy, and made him, not to say that he didn't also lose his mind later.
Wasn't it the ceremony where he opened the gates of hell? where he
Yeah, he was
claimed
doing
to have
the
opened the gates
trying
of
to.
hell.
Yeah,
Well,
the
yeah, was it the
Amulet.
Abramelin or the it was part of the Goetia? It
But
wasn't
what's
the
the
one he
old
did.
dude in Indiana Jones that and he's lost his mind because he stared into the skull
Yeah,
too
well,
long.
the theme goes throughout all them. So in Temple of Doom, remember they go and it's Kali. So the shaman guys, Gali Shakti De, Malicha, Nam Shabai, Nam Shabai. Right? They took these stones from here, and it's the Maharaja or whatever wants total knowledge, and Indiana Jones has to he has to do this like to save them or whatever, and then he breaks out of it with fire. Short round saves him. But it's essentially the theme of that one as well. It happens in Last Crusade because when they get to the Grail, right, he chose falsely, right? She wants to know everything. Her face melts. The other guy dies. And then they choose the Carpenter's Cup, the humble Carpenter's Cup, and they receive the Grail. The same thing happens in Crystal Skull. The most recent one,
That was good. I actually enjoyed that.
he wanted knowledge through, meeting Archimedes. He wanted to stay, he wanted to stay there in the ancient world. Those are Roman triremes. That was a good detail in the movie when he recognizes the names of the boats. But he wants to stay so he can have knowledge, and they won't let him. So he has to go back to the future, I suppose. Which is weird that it's a consistent theme in those movies, but it ties in with the fact that Indiana Jones is OSS, right? He's like at Yale. Crystal Skull has a huge Yale scene. It's tied in with intelligence, and of course the Ukrainian woman, was it Kate Blanchett in Crystal Skull? She's playing the part of a kind of what MK Ultra was supposedly formed as a result of, which was that the Russians were involved in mind control and esoteric research with the use of witches and such, and so she sort of plays a natural role, according to that sort of timeline, I suppose.
Yeah.
Rough Hands renewed his membership. Been a COTEL crew member for 9 months. Thank you so much, Rough Hands. He says, make BLA do the Michael Caine ruby size of a tangerine impression.
In the Dark Knight Rises.
All right.
It's really not
Dance
a great
for us,
impression.
monkey.
Master Wayne. When I was back there in Burma, we found rubies the size of tangerines, Master Wayne. Some people just want to watch the world burn. That's terrible. It's not much better at his. Have you seen his acting instruction video? It's a classic video on the internet.
No, I haven't.
Yeah. His key to film acting is don't blink. Look at me, don't blink. See, look, I'm not blinking. And he doesn't blink for like 3 minutes. I can do the same. See, it doesn't matter. My eyes burn. It doesn't matter. I can look over. I can widen them. I don't blink. I'm not blinking. If I have to blink, there's an explosion. I blinked when I looked. That's how you capture the audience. Master Wayne. There you go, buddy. I'm the monkey who dances.
Well, I'm gonna. We're already past the 2.5 hour mark. That's usually what we do for the open panels. I was gonna wind things down. If anybody wants to show some love and support for the channel and my work, feel free to send in a super chat using Streamlabs, Dono Chat, or YouTube. Or if you'd like to gift some COTEL crew memberships, feel free to do that as well. Now I'm going to leave it up to you guys. Any final statements, ideas, thoughts on the conversation, 2024, anything that was mentioned? Feel free.
May I go ahead and just I'm gonna be honest. I'm kind of afraid of how the future is. Like, for instance, in my line of work, I'm trying to be an industrial electrician, but the problem is, like, the way things are going, it's like the patience factor of, oh man, it's going to take this many more years of apprenticeship or somehow like other documented stuff. I'm hoping that I can go the apprenticeship route, and once I get the journeyman rank, that basically like, oh, everything's open. But it's like the patience factor, the whole deal of, oh man, am I ever gonna get a set job skill? It's like, it's so difficult before you get like your degree or your ranking that you need to be
I'm sorry,
stable.
how old are you? Hey man, how old are you, brother?
24, man.
Yeah, dude. I think anybody here will tell you, I don't know, I'm not going to offer advice, but it sounds like you're on a good track and you got to stick with it, dude, because you're in an area where it's going to be needed, it's necessary, and no cyborg robot is going to replace you. There's Sam Hyde has a lot of stuff on. I'm going to recommend you watch Sam Hyde. He's the best advice on this, especially for younger fellas, seeking employment and especially with needed things.
Well, that's what I was trying to do. I messed up in college. English got the best of me, and so because of laziness and failing that twice, and I came back and I ended up learning the electrical trade at a tech school, but then the whole deal of, oh, you need this many years of experience, and then it just seems like to get journeyman rank, you got to go through like some type of apprenticeship, and the whole deal of me not having the journeyman rank yet, there's that fear of like, oh crap, how am I gonna like take care of a wife, get land, animals?
Mike, what's the alternative? What exactly is the alternative to working hard and just persevering? You're gonna give up?
No, because then the devil truly gets
there
you.
You
like
go.
the
So
only
there's only one option, and that's forward.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm already in the water, so it's like I gotta keep trying to swim.
Absolutely.
In fact, I don't know how you personally, I mean, I know years have passed, but I recall even in like past streams, David, you were scared of like, oh man, I don't have my homestead. The freaking coof nightmare is going on with the stabbies and all that. Well, maybe not that. I don't know if y'all caught that hand sign, so no. With the little poop. So it's like that uncertainty and of having
those things are outside my control, and I wouldn't say I was scared. I was just describing the state of the country and where things were going. But my point is, like, I started this channel, I didn't make $1 for 8 months. Nobody was watching my videos. I didn't have 1,000 subscribers, and I used my life savings to live off of to build a YouTube channel. So, the point is to have faith in God, to get close with him. And the only way forward is through hard work. There's no shortcuts. And that's what the devil offers. Again, the selling of your soul is literal, but also a metaphor for people just taking shortcuts. And so if you're in a good line of work, I would recommend that if all those things that you want, a good career, a homestead, a wife, well, the line of work that you're in can.
Oh, you do remember from the past streams I've called in.
Yeah, I remember. I don't forget that accent, my man.
Wait, what? I got what's accent?
But anyways, Mike, we're gonna start shutting things down. Do you have any
too long? Sorry, man. Like
we're hopping off here.
It's just the providence aspect. You got to trust it, but it's so difficult.
God can only give. God's providence can only meet so far as you walk down the path. So don't give up, man, and just keep working hard. Everybody I've talked to, especially Orthodox guys, it's always difficult to begin with, and you just keep going, and things will slowly work itself out. So don't give up. Don't get frustrated. You focus on, and that's where I wanted to end. And I was going to throw this to Father Deacon earlier, and I forgot to, but about as Orthodox Christians, and he was talking about focusing what Father Deacon said, with the primary of his focus are the people around him, his local community. These things are in your control. How you treat the people that are in your vicinity is in your control. Your spiritual life is in your control. How hard you work towards whatever your goals are, that's in your control. If we focus on that, I think all of us, men and women, have an optimistic 2024. If we focus on all the stuff that's outside of our control, which is probably going to happen
too. I mean, keep in mind, you're under demonic attack. Demons are masters of made you look, right? That's what caused St. Peter to sink in the sea, and fear to overcome him was simply to keep his eyes off of Christ. So it's very easy for the demons just to distract you in terms of your priorities. The reason why you get fear is because you're looking outside at different stuff that, like Patrick said, you have no control over. So it becomes really easy that, or to focus on the immediate things that are in your control. Can you do your prayers tonight? I could do that. Doesn't even have to be long. Keep it short. Just the small things. Can I do something charitable for? Can I make it to church? On Sunday,
on time.
And the fear will go away. Like if you just the consistent little things, those first around you, and those kind of priorities. Because I've noticed the same thing with finances too, right? That's one that can get us all like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I just lost, employment with the online college I teach in California. How am I going to, right? What is the demon doing? Look over here, look over here. But it's like, who cares? Obviously, God's always taking care of us. We have nothing to fear. The most repeated verse and phrase in scripture is fear not. And all we have to do is just do the little things, be faithful in the small things and consistent. And then what you start to see is you're not looking at all the other stuff. You don't have the fear. You start to find peace, right? You don't have the anxiety. You're sleeping better. I think that
Father Deacon, before you go on, in terms of having that type of peace, did you ever have times in your life to where it's like, you were being stubborn, but it's like you had to take a crowbar and pry your heart open to really try, like, okay, Lord, do as you please, but I'm not going to lie, it's very difficult keeping this heart open, or...
Yeah, I struggle with it every day. Like, I know that I'll have a trial that's going to come up, and I know it's necessary. And there's the baby part of me that's like, oh, I don't want to go through this. Oh, I don't want to. I just have been laid out for a week with the flu. I'm like, I don't want this. And then the spiritual man who has to say, man up, glory to God for all things. Like, it's necessary.
Right.
I've had to have conversations with people that I'm like, I don't want to have this conversation with you. It's going to stink, right? Got to do it. Like, it's my job. I have to call somebody up and, talk about stuff that I don't want to talk about and call them out or something like that, right? Because we're all conflict avoidant, aren't we? I don't want to deal with that. It's like, but you got to.
Right.
There's no way out of it, right?
It's what Marcellus Wallace says in Pulp Fiction. That's pride with you, right? Especially young men now, because I deal with older teens through adults for many years, and one thing is that, like, the ability for a young guy, especially in your early 20s, to learn to say no confidently is important. To keep your word, to make commitments to people and to things, and to keep them, you got to be the reliable person, and to be the one that reaches out to other people regardless of how they're going to reach out to you, and not put your friends to the test. I think are big things that people have to get over. One thing that for older people to get over is, like, to get out of something without being, they have to be right, or to get the last word right. And I think that's a thing that especially older people can fall into. But as a young guy, going into a career, it's like you're in your early 20s, you have your youth, your vigor, your enthusiasm, and you have your whole life ahead of you to get a career. Anybody, even if you don't go into a career that involves like an actual apprenticeship, everybody reaches a place where there's a catch-22. You can't get the job unless you have the thing, and you can't get the thing unless you have a job. But there will be somebody there who sees that in you, and they'll put you through the thing, and then you'll end up with something consistent throughout the years that gives you a solid career. And luckily you've chosen a thing to go into that is a necessary and solid career. So I'd keep at it, dude.
And none of this stuff matters anyways, because I'm going to see all of you in the camps in probably a couple months.
That's true.
That's right. Acid Rain District, FEMA Zone 666. We're all going to be...
Oh, come on, man. We have the World War III prophecies that are like, if we survive this, orthodoxy's going to grow. Hopefully.
Yeah. God willing.
Yeah.
Anything else, Patrick? I got to head out. I'm going to.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
Like
Mike, take it easy, brother. God bless you, and we'll be praying for you. So keep on keeping on, man. Keep on fighting.
So easy to say I'm gonna do it, but so difficult to, actually. But
All right.
hey, if y'all pray for me, if y'all just wish me well, like, I
We do.
appreciate everybody.
We
Thanks.
absolutely do, man. Keep on keeping on. God bless you and the family. Father Deacon, any closing words before you hop off here as well?
I was thinking another story too when BLA was mentioning this stuff with the demonic promise of knowledge. And remember, it's always a trickster, right? Like I was saying, jinn or demon too, right? Like these things never work out.
Just
Right?
did a
It's like
stream on the gin last night. Synchro.
did you?
Just
I
did
gotta
a
I caught
stream.
some of
Yeah.
that. That was good, BLA.
I gotta watch it. But like it's Rumpelstiltskin, it's the jinn, it's all these different like things where they're like tricksters. I'll promise you this, but it always backfires. And then I was thinking about Elder Thaddeus talking about the story of thoughts determine our lives. And you remember that story about that novice, and he gets an apparition of a noetic being comes to him and is like, you're so smart and you're so intelligent. Think about what you could do and contribute to the world, but alas, you're having to pray all the time. But we could solve that. You could read all these philosophy books and I'll do your prayers for you. And he kept us up for some time before he tells the abbot, who the abbot's like, wait, what? You encountered a noetic being that told you to stop praying and you thought that was a good idea? Do you remember what happens to him, though? He loses his mind. Like, he actually couldn't read. And I'm like, there's another example of it where the promise of knowledge actually destroys the mind. We've seen countless things where, people on psychedelics have lost their mind.
Yep.
And don't come back. And so I think that's an interesting theme. And I forgot to bring that back up, that like, there's a loss. That's
well, and
that never works out well.
That fits with the theme of the open panel today, because I think 2024 is going to be a year in which a lot of people lose their mind due to demonic activity. And it's hopeful that if we stay with Christ, that we were going to gain. Now, it's not going to be necessarily easy, but nobody said it would be.
Completely.
Yeah, easy is for effeminate sissy boys.
That's true. Well, Father Deke, I know you got to run. God bless you. God bless you and the family. Tell your lovely lady I said hello. And I will see you in the future. We got to dude, I was wanting to do a stream on an Orthodox take on science here soon, based on your article, but just based on things going on in the world. So I'll reach out to you privately. We'll try and set something up whenever you're free. But take it easy.
Nice.
God bless. Thanks for joining.
Bye-bye.
All right, gentlemen, closing words. Nick, anything you want to say? I was going to say Nick and Ivan, then we'll leave the last word for BLA.
Well, like you said, we have to work towards the multitudes from all nations, right?
Yep.
Dressed in white, praising the Lord, and glory to God.
Glory to God. Amen to that. Well,
Thanks for having me here.
I appreciate you coming on, man. Thanks for the contributions. You're clearly a sharp dude, and you had great insight today. So whenever we have another open panel, if you're free, hop on.
Yeah, thanks. Definitely. I'll keep watching.
All right. God bless, brother. Take it easy.
Yeah, I'd say that when it comes to knowledge, there's a trope that comes again and again, but I think it has to do not as much as let's say a damning of Gnosticism, but rather Gnosticism itself. Like, because the idea in Gnosticism is that knowledge cannot really be grounded. It's a denial of the incarnation. Like we've had the Feast of the Nativity, Christmas, our Orthodox Christmas, and it's basically a celebration of God becoming incarnate, allowing us to be sons of God, and allowing us to know the revelation of God. So I'd say that, like, for example, movies like I don't know, The Green Knight, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, that's a Gnostic movie through and through. It has at least 7 scenes. Like, there's even a scene where, like, the king receives a message, but his wife has to receive it, and before the paper falls into the ground, it bursts into flames. Like that's the idea of like knowledge never being able to be grounded. So it's okay to want to know, but Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane, he says he doesn't want to take the cup because in a sense, he's protecting, let's say, the distance between him and his father. He's basically not wanting to expose his father. He's not wanting to replace his father. And I think that's the proper place for like the proper understanding of the gnosiology of the way to actually engage in the spiritual life in a Christian way instead of a Gnostic way. And I agree with what you said, DPH, about let's say a lot of people losing their minds. And well, we'll see. I think it's going to be very interesting. And I think it was very interesting that the topic that Mike brought about like how to deal with life came up, because at least from my perspective, I've been going through some trials lately, and I think that I'm more convinced than ever that we have to man up and embrace the cross. And like we don't have any kind of idea how much pain and suffering we can bear until we actually try to do it in the most noble way we can imagine. Like we are really stronger than we think, but we have to try. So those are my thoughts.
Amen. Well, Ivan, always appreciate you, brother. Thanks for hopping on. God bless you in Spain. Wish you the absolute best. And God willing, I'll see you in the next open panel. BLA, God bless you, brother. I appreciate you. I appreciate your friendship, man. I love you.
Love you too, brother. Thank you so much. This was a great panel. Great guest tonight. Love seeing and talking to Father Deacon as always. And everybody out there, please watch DPH. This is later tonight with Jay.
Yep.
Is this going to be? Is this here or is this over?
It's over on Jay's channel. Yep.
Everybody go to Jay Dyer, Jay's analysis. Watch DPH and Jay talk about astral projection. Shouts out to Jay and Jamie out there. Great discussion. I think that one of the super chats earlier brought up, just to briefly wrap it up, brought up the idea that, would this really happen if there was a complete, war, if there was a balkanization here? Would the powers that be, turn on the people? Well, we've seen that, the precedent was set. We, and not in our lifetime, but we've seen this before happen in this very country where, brother turned against brother. These things certainly happen, but like you guys have said the whole time, you have to worry about what you can control: your right. job, your life, paying your bills, your family, your friends, and loving people, because ultimately God's providence will control. It's everything's in God's providence, and we don't know the time or the place, and the eye is not seen, the ear is not heard, as Alex says. And also look at Job, right? There's the part in Job where, God says, look, to paraphrase roughly, but, were you here when I created the universe? Were you here? What do we know? We know the things in our life, and everything passes away, but we don't know the reasons for things, and life is tough, but you got to get on with it. You got to keep living. Right. Because one of the things for this coming year, just to my final thought here, is that in the coming year, we're going to, see just more of the sort of Gumby gub man feminization of the fellas out there, the dudes. I'm sure there'll be a lot of stuff with future tech and AI and, the fake and grays and all that stuff. But, I think we should look out for the fake flags with 10,000 people coming in a day. The thing that will unite people in this country will be that, which is a weird way of uniting people into more war. So hopefully there'll be peace on earth and goodwill towards men. And thanks everybody out there. I hope everybody has a good long weekend, and we'll all be watching y'all's stream tonight. DPH, good to see you. Love you, brother.
Love you too, man. Appreciate you. I appreciate all your work, man. Keep up what you're doing. It's fantastic. Thanks, anything man. I can help you with, always reach out. Thanks, see you, brother. Take it easy. Peace. And that's going to conclude our open panel, guys. We had one last super chat come in from the Thomas Henderson. God bless you, brother. Wish you and your wife the absolute best. He throws in a generous $20.24, a la 2024, and says, great stream. Glory to Jesus Christ. Peace to his saints. Blessings to all in 2024, and blessings to you, Thomas. Really appreciate all your support, brother. Everything you did. Thomas is a premium member as well. So thank you, Thomas. Really appreciate you. And guys, that's going to do it. I'm going to hop off here. Again, smash that like, and appreciate all the super chatters, all the supporters. I love you guys. Thank you for the support, and I will see you over on Jay's channel in 2 hours. So as always, until next time, God bless.